Wonderful, wonderful.
Recording in progress.
Indeed. Just get this
People coming
squared
in.
away. Perfect. A very warm welcome, everybody. Great to see you all again. Do let us know where you're joining from. A very warm hello, as ever, from Body Scotland.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Patricia.
Where are you joining from, Patricia? From the Netherlands. Yes, indeed. That's our dear Lightbox Expo Discord community manager who has gone above and beyond for this community too. Hey, from Iran.
Hi.
Oh, Keith from West Scotland. Hello from Dundee, my friend.
There you go.
Perfect. Hi from Glasgow.
Ciao
Fantastic.
from Italia.
Oh,
hello,
mate.
Daria.
Wow. What's with all the Scots today? This is amazing. My people.
I have a great fan base there.
Amazing. That's incredible.
I'm from Canada.
Oh, I love it.
Bonjour. Bonjour from Paris. No, not Paris, France. Portugal. Oi, next.
Hey. Vancouver. Wonderful.
Nice. How are you all doing this fine day? You all doing good? You all ready to sculpt some heads? No heads, ahead. Yeah, today we're gonna dive in. So it's gonna be a fun one. Patricia. Yeah, are we all ready? Let's do this. Ringling,
right.
Utah, United States.
Amazing.
Nice. Anyone from Brazil here?
Any Brazilians?
Any Brazilians? Everyone seems to be ready. Hungry. Nice.
Give folk a chance to get in. Fantastic to see the study group as well on the Lightbox Expo Discord. Shout out to Patricia. We'll be hearing from Patricia later on. But so great to see you guys banding together.
That's right.
Leticia's got some great stuff in store for us today. So more on that very soon. Hi from Stockholm. Hey folks. Hey, happy.
Nice.
Amazing.
Patricia said she's from Paraguay originally. Yep.
That's correct. Then. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Nice.
Wonderful. Oh,
all
nice.
right. Ines hanging out with Brazilians. Yeah. We like to party and have fun. So nice. All right.
Let's kick this off. Wonderful. Well, folks, as ever, a very warm welcome. It's great to see some returning faces for Leticia's second webinar with us, which is designing stylized 3D characters in ZBrush, and we're kicking off today with some head sculpting. So Leticia, incredible viz dev, sculpture, character modeler who is currently working as a character modeling supervisor for Walt Disney Animation Studios, and that is correct. Correct me if I'm wrong, Leticia.
That's correct.
There we go. Wonderful. Encanto, Sea Beast, Overwatch, and something very exciting coming at the end of this month. Do let us know what that is.
November 23rd, Strange World, our next movie at the Walt Disney Studios, where I was a character supervisor for character modeling supervisor. It's coming out November 23rd. So go watch it.
Go watch it. Get your tickets ready. Wonderful. And some more exciting news as well. We have, so first of all, this is free. ZBrush have an online summit next week. Leticia will be presenting a piece on Sea Beast. That's Monday the 16th, 2 p.m. Pacific time. I'll pop that in the chat as well. Leticia, is there anything you can tell us about that just now as well?
Yeah, so it's for the ZBrush Summit is always a free event. It's going to be online this year. And myself, and Charles Ellison, which is an amazing viz dev artist as well. we're going to be talking about making VizDev models for Sea Beast movie on Netflix. So if you guys want to see some behind the scenes, we're going to open some models. We're going to be showing some tips and tricks on how we did stuff. So join us Wednesday, the 16th at 2 p.m. Pacific time. And it should be very fun.
Excellent. I will get a link to that in the chat right now. Wednesday, 2 p.m., November 16th. Amazing, amazing. All right.
Yeah.
I think that's us. We're good. Oh, of course. Please don't let me forget one of the most important things. Questions today, folks. If you would like to just use the Q&A in the bottom left-hand side of your screen to type out questions, you can pop them to me, and when Leticia's ready, she'll ask me, and we will get your questions asked. After Leticia's demo later on, if you want to click raise hand, then we can have some live questions as well and help you guys out. We definitely want to hear from some of the study group folks as well. We're really excited for this. It's fantastic to have you back, Leticia. So without further ado, please take it away.
Yay. Hi, everyone. So today, well, last time we did a little bit, we talked a little bit about the story of our character, and we talk a bit about like the block out stage. So today the hope is that we're gonna do a ton of sculpting on the head and start talking about secondary shapes, primary, secondary shapes of the face of our little character. So I'm going to do a little reminder of our story. So you all, if you missed the last one, you can kind of get to know it. So let me share my screen. Okay, so let me get my PDF here and let's talk about it. So this is webinar 02. And the hope for today is that we're going to continue focusing on our block out. Then we're going to work on the face sculpt and the eyes. We're going to talk about basic poly paint. For those of you who don't know what poly paint is, don't worry, you're going to know soon. And hopefully we get to do a little quick block out for the hair as well. All right. And the story, very fast here, the story that we created, I created, it's about, this is how I write down. If you want to know more about how I created this story on the first webinar, I talk about that. But basically our boy is about 10 years old. He's very cute, little nerdy boy. He loves raccoons. It is Halloween time. He's a very sweet kid, kind of mama's boy. But he's very messy. He keeps a lot of trash in his room. So because he loves raccoons and he keeps trash in his rooms, his mom kind of calls him Trash Kid. And then that's his superhero name that he created for Halloween. So an important thing for him also is that he suffered bullying from being a bit different, but he takes his passions very seriously and he's not shy about showing it, even if it might make people laugh at him and things like that. So here's a few facts about raccoons that I researched so I can know like how the kid's gonna behave. And again, this is all the kind of like research, that I did with raccoon clothes for Halloween, some little props that I'm gonna use. Again, I talk more about this in the first webinar. So that's the story, okay? So remember that last time we ended doing some blockouts, and here are a few keywords that I always try to remember about it. And we're gonna talk about it throughout this whole thing, this whole series of webinars, okay? But one thing that I like to do when I'm going to sculpt the face, I like to obviously collect some nice references of like real kids. So I look for some kind of like nerdy looking kids, on that vibe. And then I look for some inspiration from movies that I like. So I thought about Antonio and then Miguel from Coco. And here's just a few heads, just kind of like get inspired by the style and colors. Anything that I want to get inspired is in here. We can get inspired by hair, by glasses, so much. So I don't like to collect a ton. I like to have a good handful of stuff that I can keep looking at it and exploring. So that's kind of like the kids part of the head. And then I really like to collect a few things. And those images here is something that I copy every time I'm going to start a project. I like to have a little bit of like anatomy, just kind of every time refresh where I want the volumes of the face of the muscles to go. He is a very famous image of the planes of the face that we can always take a look to kind of like check if we following some good ideas. You know, some art I like to see like some of how the volumes are represented in sculptures and in paintings. So again, you know, this is a very good one because it's so big, it's very pushed. So it's easy for us to see shapes and forms on it. You know, you can really feel the masseter here, the zygomatic volume, the nasolabial, all that good stuff. So I like to have that. Here's my husband and my nephew as inspiration as well for the kid. This is a museum here in LA that I took a few photos of this sculpture so we can kind of see how you can see it's very stylized, it's very simplified, and that's very nice for us to see like a kid's face, how we're going to represent. Again, some more anatomy stuff here. You can see here on this one that I have some adult skulls. So some of it you can see that, let me get the pen. It's more pushed, aggressive jawbone. Here we have a little more of that taper feeling. Here even more, this is a female skull. And in the profile, we can see some variations of that stuff, you know. So something to think about. We don't need to go too crazy. And then here is some kid skulls. So we can kind of see what happens, right? You can see that there's a way bigger mass for the top of the head. It's very cartoony almost, right? It's very nice. It's almost like ready to be a stylized skull. But we can see a bigger mass here in the upper part of the head. So we got to focus on that. This is very representative of youth. It's how big the mass on the top is, and also how this distance here from the eyes to the end of the jaw here. So we're going to focus on that as well, like, and see how we bring down the age or up the age of someone because just playing with those shapes. These are very basic skull shape, so we can focus. And again, the planes of the face. This is by Philippe Ferro. And we can kind of feel how the light hits. One important thing that I always like to say is that 3D sculpture is perceived by light, right? Your shape is perceived. We cannot touch it out 3D models right now, only if you print, obviously. So we got to really understand how the planes of the face behave with light so we can try to mimic that in 3D. And here's a little planes of the face I did myself to show you guys. So we're going to talk about a few of these planes, not too much because we're not going crazy on anatomy. Again, we're doing stylized, but we're going to talk about that. And yeah, again, some of my inspirations that I showed last time. One new inspiration that I brought here, and every time I'm going to bring a new inspiration for us to see, but this is Angela Smaldon, and she worked on Missing Link from Leica. And I just love how these shapes are, how pushed and stylized this stuff is. It's just like amazing, in my opinion. Like, it's, look at the design, look at how it is. I just love Angela's work, and especially this stuff that she did for Missing Link. I love how the nose just comes out of it. It's like, this is something that myself appreciate so much on 3D. Yeah, so here's a few inspirations. If you want to see more about Angela, type her name, Angela Smaldon, on our station or on Instagram, whatever it is. But it's here for us to get inspired. So cool. All right, so one thing before we go back to ZBrush and start sculpting is stylization, right? So every time you're going to start a project, you're going to think about kind of like what kind of style you're going to go, right? Play around like, oh, I'm going to go a bit more simple, like Luca, or let me get a pink one, like Luca, or this kind of stylization more pushed, or you want to go a bit more anatomical, like Valorant. This model is done by my husband, by the way. He's also a 3D character modeler artist. You can see that this different levels of anatomy and simplification, right? Here you can see much more simplification of something like this one. So just something for us to think about. Like sometimes I don't like to be too strict with myself, like I gotta define a style. But sometimes I want to keep in mind, if I start adding anatomy in areas, I want to make sure that I have anatomy spread in a nice way. So it doesn't look like I only put anatomy maybe on the eyes and then the mouth is like super graphic or something. So I always like to keep these images to kind of like get inspired. You see something much more realistic, pushed for realism here and this one here. So again, just something to keep in mind. And also an important thing we talked about is much of stylization is it's on what do you want to say with the shape of the head, right? We all heard the talk about, oh, this guy's a bit more square, right? As a personality in life, he used to be, if you see him when he was young, he used to have a bit more round head. And then he starts getting older and grumpier, and then his head starts becoming more square. That's something to think about, right? If you see something here, let me zoom in. This is amazing. I love this lineup for Ratatouille. Like you can see this guy has very sharp, fine angles, right? Very triangular. We have this sort of like shape going on, and like everything's a bit more sharp. And this guy, we have a little more of this shape like this. And so all of this is going to talk a little bit about what is it that you want to say with your characters, right? We see here Linguini. He's like very little chin, which makes him feel a bit weak, and very big round nose, like very friendly, rounded shapes, right? But then we see her, and she's a bit like a mix of Linguini and something a bit more angular. She's a bit more edgy on the movie, right? She has a bit more like a sharp personality, but she also very sweet and nice. So we can feel that contrast going on here compared to Linguini. And that is just like, it's something that you have to work with a lot of intention, you know? Like we're doing this kid that he's been bullied, but he's very passionate. So maybe we can go something similar to her, where he has round shapes, but shape's gonna have just a little bit of sharp to show that like he has that drive, that edge on him as well, you know? So all that stuff we gotta work with intention to be able to put on our characters, okay? See if there's anything else. I just love Ratatouille design. It's just so crazy to me. All right, cool. So any questions before we jump into ZBrush right now? Before we go there.
No, I think we're good to go. Folks, as I say, just feel free to pop your questions in the bottom left-hand side Q&A there, type them out, and when Letitia's ready, she'll give me a holler. But no, you're good to go, Letitia.
Good to go? Okay. One thing I like to do right before I start sculpting or start doing anything is to ground myself, okay? So if you want to join me, feel free. But the way I like to ground myself to set the intention of study, of working, is to take 3 intentional breaths, okay? I'm going to stop sharing just so you guys can see my face. And the intentional breaths are very important to set intention for your studies, for your talk, anything that you're going to do. So what I like to do is I sit straight, okay? Put it in a posture, don't be too slouchy or anything. Throw down your shoulders a little bit. Push it back, put it down, straight your spine with pride, okay? And then just 3 breaths, we're gonna breathe in through the nose, and then we're gonna hold for a little bit, and then we're gonna release very slow through the mouth, okay? So I'm gonna do it here. You can see what I'm gonna do with my mouth. So I'm gonna breathe in, hold, release. So you keep your teeth closed so the air has resistance to come out, and then it comes out slower, and that tells our brain, especially the amygdala part of the brain, to slow down the release of cortisol and to increase focus. So we're going to do this 3 times now, okay? So again, breathe in. If you can breathe through your belly, that's better than your chest, okay? So if you force the air to go through your belly. Hold. Second one. Hold. Release. Last one. Hold. Release. All right. So hopefully you can feel that a little reset on your body and your mind is not too crazy anymore. And now we can set intention to what we're going to do. Okay. Hopefully feel calmer, less anxious, and then you have more focus. Great. All right. So let's start. I'm going to share my screen again. And this is where we stopped. So here, just a reminder, we did a little very simple block out for our very proportional head, right? So we did this, which is nice. And then from this block out, we did our kind of like our kids proportion block out, which was this one. And again, we can experiment with many different shapes, right? But for the sake of time, we're going to move on with this one and see where we get. And we also did this one just for fun last time, just to push it again, the limits of things. So a very quick reminder, we did the block out of 5 shapes. So we have the cranium shape, we have the jaw or lower half of the face, we have the nose, so I'm going to put 1, 2, 3. We have the ears 4, and then the neck 5. And that's kind of like every time I'm going to start a project, I have those 5 shapes and then I play with it. And then we figured out how we're going to start adding structure. So that's what we're going to do now. Let's say that this is what we chose to start. We're going to start adding secondary structure and primary structure to it. Cool. All right, so let's dive in. So we have this. Let's just double check if our proportions are feeling nice. One thing I like to do, remember that this line here, the separation between the cranium top and the lower half, it's where our eyes are going to be, right? So if we think about it in terms of my favorite word of all times, which is contrast, let's think about this, right? So we have this, we have this, we have this. So already we kind of have some contrast happening. It's not right in the center, that in the center, right? And then our nose, it's kind of halfway, which is fine. We're going to play around still. And then again, like the base of our ears and the base of the nose. And then here is going to be probably where our eyes are going to go here, right? And things like that. So, okay, we're doing good. We can move from with this. I feel like just for the sake of adding a bit more contrast, I'm going to make the cranium volume just a bit bigger. So I have my brush. If I press S, I can adjust the size of my brush. And I'm using the move brush right now. Remember, when you're doing big changes, you want a big brush. So I'm gonna start making just his cranium volume just a bit bigger here, so we can get a bit more contrast of like where his eye is gonna be compared to the top of his head. And alt click, you can change the subtools that you want to be in. So I changed to the jaw area here. Again, I'm starting to add a bit more contrast to things. Can make something like that. Here on the jaw, I'm thinking, you know, some baby fat here on the side. So I'm gonna give a little chin volume, a little baby fat on the sides. It's all, this is 3D, it's not 2D. So you gotta spin, you gotta look from all angles, what's going on with your model, right? Remember here, we talked about last week, but the farthest, this is almost like a egg shape where you have a taper going on, right? So this area starts tapering a bit more. Then right about here, you have the apex. If you don't know what I mean by apex, is the point on your curve that is the farthest one before it turns, right? So you coming. When you get about here, you start turning. So this is what I call the apex. It's like the farthest point on your model where the turn happens, okay? So in the head, in general, the apex is right about where the top of the ears are. So that's where I'm focusing right now. So I'm going to make a little wider here, a bit less here, just balancing stuff. You can see that I like to work also very clean all the time. Again, for me, working clean is just a matter of working always with intention. You don't have to work clean all the time. That is just the way I like to work. But it works very well for me. I feel like I'm not losing control of my shape. So down here, if you think about the skull itself, the jawline is very sharp like this. It's more like a V. I like to call, looking from the bottom, you have a V shape. Looking from the top, you have more like a C feeling of shape. So it's a bit more broad, you see. And then, yeah. So we kind of having all that stuff going on, which is nice. And, but we're gonna start adding a bit more bone structure to this. And I'm gonna add extra structure just so we can talk about anatomy, but you're gonna see that later on. I'm gonna start smoothing things for us. All right, so now that we have supposedly our block out ready like this, we're gonna have to use a technique called Dynamesh inside ZBrush, okay? And right now, as you know, every single piece here, they're separate subtools, right? So let me remind everyone here. If I go to my subtool palette, you can see that here that every single part is a different subtool, right? So if I turn on wireframe here, you can see each one is different than the other. So what I want now is combine everything as one mess so I can start sculpting. That's what we're gonna do. So the way you can do that is first, I'm gonna merge down everything, okay, into one subtool. Again, they're now different layers of subtools. And now I'm gonna put them together. So if you go here on the subtool palette on the right side of your computer, you're gonna have here a button called merge. And there is a merge down. So it's gonna merge down every subtool, right? So I say merge down, it's gonna ask, are you sure you cannot Control Z this? I say, sure. So now you can see that our jawline and our top of our head are inside the same thing, the same subtool now. But I want everything together in one. So again, I'm gonna do a merge down again. Do you wanna do it? Sure. Merge down again. Do you wanna do it? Yes. Merge down again. And now, as you can see, we have all of our tools together, okay? So that's that. But they're not connected yet. As you can see, they're just masses inside the same subtool, but they're not one big mess. They're still separate, okay? So what we're gonna do, again, we're gonna use a technique called Dynamesh, which is gonna put all of this together. Remember from last class that we're using dynamic subdivision here just to see things more smooth. If I turn off that, we see that our true geometry is very low res and faceted, right? So if we do a Dynamesh right now, this is going to be like, Dynamesh is going to try to keep those facet faces, which is not what we want. We want a smooth, pretty geometry, right? So what I got to do here is to subdivide this a few times so it's smooth, and then we're going to make one big mesh. How do you do that? Easy. We go here to the geometry tab, and we have an area called divide. You see here, inside geometry, divide. Divide, like it says, is going to subdivide this geometry to add more divisions. Right now, if you look here on the bottom of my screen, this is on my UI. If you're using ZBrush default UI, it's going to be on the top of the screen up here. And this is the amount of polygons or points, I guess, that you have on your scene, the amount of vertices, okay? Right now, you can see here that we have on this subtool, okay, active points, that means it's this subtool. We have 2,316 points. When we subdivide, right, you're going to see that this is going to increase. So I'm going to press divide. Oop. And now you can see that our geometry is looking smoother. And now our points here increased, right? Because we divide. Remember, one face, one polygon. This is a face of a polygon. When you press divide, it divides into 4 like this. So that's what happened here. We used to have one face. Now we have 4 for each face in our model, right? So now we have this amount of points right here. So that's looking a bit smoother for us to start as a block, but I like to go even farther. I'm going to say divide again, so it looks a bit smoother. Okay. And now you can see again our points. We have way more. But our mesh is smoother. So when we do Dynamesh, it's going to be a smoother volume for us to work with. Any questions before I move on to Dynamesh?
The only one was just a request to share your UI.
Yes, I forgot to send that on the Discord, and I'm sorry, but I will do that this weekend, and I'll send to you all.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, of course. No, that's a good reminder. Yeah, I'll put it on the Discord, okay? Okay, so that is all good, right, so far?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So now we're going to do Dynamesh, and you see what's going to happen, okay? I'm going to come down here on the geometry tab. That's where everything geometry related is going to be. And there is a menu here called Dynamesh. I click on it, here we go. And there's a bunch of buttons. Don't get scared. We're only going to use 2 things, which is the Dynamesh button, so we can Dynamesh, and the resolution. The resolution, as it says, if you have low resolution, it's going to make a very light mesh for you to start working. If you have more resolution, it's going to make a very dense mesh for you. So let's see what happens if I keep the default of 64. I'm going to press Dynamesh. It's going to ask, like, you have multiple subdivisions because we divide things, right? Do you want to keep it? I'm going to say, no, I don't care. I'm just going to continue what I have. So I'm going to say no. And as you can see, with 64 of Dynamesh, if I turn on my wireframe now, you can see what happened here, right? So it's very low res, 64 is very low, but it did maintain our primary shapes. Like, you still can feel the volume. If I look here at my silhouette model here, you can see that our shape's still there. But this is too low for us to play with, okay? So I'm going to Control Z. And instead of 64, I'm going to double that. So 20, 28. Let's see. It doesn't need to be precise. And just like, let's double kind of you know, so I'm 144 now. I'm going to press Dynamesh again. It's going to ask, do you want to keep subdivisions? I'm going to say no. And now you can see that we have kind of double the amount of topology. And don't worry about this weird thing. It doesn't know what to do very well to connect shapes. That's totally fine. So that's a bit better for us to work with, but I'm just going to go a bit higher. I'm going to put 200. So we did 144. I'm going to put about 200 just to go a little higher. And again, depends on you. I like to work with relatively low amount of polygons and go slowly growing and growing. I recommend that because it's easier to control the mesh. Okay. So I'm going to press Dynamesh again too. He's going to ask me the same question. I say no. And now it's a bit more dense, as you can see, but not too much. It's easy to control. Okay. And that's all we need to do with Dynamesh so far. So obviously, you know, it creates this weird stuff here, and that's okay because we're gonna smooth it. We're gonna clean it. So just a reminder, any brush that you in, if you hold shift, it's gonna switch here. If you look here on the top, I'm holding shift, it's changed from red to blue, your gizmo, right, your control. And it also changed here from the move brush, in this case, to smooth brush. So you hold shift, and I'm gonna go slow again, very slow. And just clean around some of the mess that Dynamesh did for me, okay? Again, you don't be precious with stuff at this stage. Like, you know, you're gonna have to clean up many times everything. So don't get too concerned if things got too messy or whatever, because we're gonna clean stuff, okay? So I'm just going around cleaning those weird lines and just making sure, you know, again, like I told you guys that I like to work clean. So I don't like to go around like hold shift and like do whatever like this. No, I go around and I'm checking my shapes and, you know, with love, like you petting your cat or your dog, you know, you go like, all right, friend, let me pet you a little bit here and see what happens. Okay. So I'm just smoothing around. Okay. So you guys can see now that we have our shape going on. That's nice. All right. So what else can we do now? I'm going to go here to my prep and I'm just going to show this image again. Okay. Or maybe this one. This one is a bit more simplified. So if you do any 2D or anything like that, you probably know, right, that we kind of like, they say like, okay, you make a sphere and then you chop off the ends of it, right? So it becomes a little more like a simpler shape like this. Then we take this, we added this shape here, and we shave this part, yada, yada. So we're gonna do something similar here, but not too crazy again, because I don't wanna lose my round shapes on my character. But just for the sake of teaching, I'm gonna do a little more. Okay, so looking at this, I think it's Bridgman drawing, we're gonna start adding some structure line to it. And how we do that? There are two ways. You can use a native brush from ZBrush, which is called the standard brush, DAM standard. So I'm going to press D for them. Remember that if you press B for brush, it's going to open the brush menu. If I press D for DAM standard right here, then we have the DAM standard. So as long as you know the first letter of the brush you're looking, you just press and it's going to show. And that's great. Okay. So if I click here, let's see what DAM standard does. Okay. So I clicked it. I'm going to just draw some. And you can see that it kind of like create this valley, sort of like a little sharper, right? If I use Alt, again, Alt is always the inversion of the function. So if this function is going in, I hold Alt and click, this function is going to go out, right? Like this. So to create planes different from curves, right? If I have a curve like this, the light goes smoothly creating that soft, like what we have right here, the soft highlight transition. if I have a plane, we're gonna have light, dark, right? So it's gonna be a abrupt transition of light, which in this stage is good thing because we're putting structure into a model. So every time you don't know what's going on in an area, just start adding planes so you can understand the structure underneath, okay? So if I go here and I'm using them standards, so I'm gonna make my brush big. Remember, big decisions, big brush. And let's say, for example, I'm gonna mark this area here, okay? So I'm gonna come here, right about where the top of the eyes are, and I'm gonna hold Alt, and I'm going to push it, that structure here, you see? So it creates that break. And if I make my brush even bigger, you're gonna see that it's gonna pull that plane even better, see? So now we kind of have like, well, there's a little belly here, but in theory, it would be like this and this, right? So light, dark. So that's what we're trying to do with structure, right? But I do prefer a different brush than this one. And the brush I'm gonna show you guys is not native of ZBrush. It's a custom brush made by some amazing artists on the internet that put it for free. So I'm gonna tell you the name of this brush and you can download. And it's a very good brush to create planes. So the brush we're gonna see here is called HMAH. No, it's called BM. So is this brush here? MH. Where is it? I forgot that. Oh, here we go. Down here. MAH cut matte 8. And let me type this on the chat here so you guys can see. So it's a plane brush. It's called MAH cut matte 8. Okay. I'm going to show the difference of this brush to the other one, just so you guys can understand why I prefer to use this custom brush, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing that we did before. I'm going to hold it like this, and I'm going to hold Alt, push, and push. So you can see that it's a bit sharper. It creates a bit sharper transition with the light, which is something that I like more. That's the only difference, okay? But if you don't want to download different brushes or anything like that, you can see here what happens. It's very mechanical. This is actually a mechanical brush. If you want to do like art surface stuff, you can use this brush. And it's very nice. So what I like to do is to make a big brush. And down here, you have the intensity of your brush. Be using ZBrush default, it's going to be up here. Okay, the intensity of your brush. So what I'm going to do is going to make big, but I'm going to put a low intensity just to pull a little bit of that plane. You see, I'm just like slowly building that plane here on the side. And you can see now how we see the light. Let's see before and after, right? So this is after I established that plane. This is before I established that. So you can really see how you can build structure just using a big brush, low intensity, with this to create planes. Look at the difference, right? You can see structure much better. So that's what we're gonna do. All right. So I'm gonna go around here and establish some planes that I think is important for us. So coming here, we can see here that we have that kind of like brow plane breaking. Then we have this very interesting sort of like plane going in like this. And from the corner of the temporal area, this is the temporal area, we have this going up like so, see? So this is something, these are the main things that I really like to establish every time. Is basically the eye area, which I really want that going in and then coming out. Then we're gonna do this area here for the muzzle area. And then we're gonna establish the temporalis, which is this area here. All right, so we did the frontal one. I'm just gonna go back a bit one more time so you all can see. So I'm gonna establish where my eyes are gonna be. Here, you can see, check it out, right? And now I'm gonna establish the side of my head, which is on this corner that I did here. So I'm gonna come up here. And you can go all the way and turn in if you want. Like this. So now you can see that we can see the sides of our face. We have the front area of our face and we have the side area, right? If this was a cube, we will have that. Before, we just had one simple shape, very hard to define what is side, what is front. That's why planes of the face is so important, right? So I'm going to come here, establish that. I'm doing a small brush. No, that'd be big. So you can establish well. I can even come here slowly, just a little bit, like hit to kind of like establish that break over here. You can see just a little bit like so. Okay. And then, like I said, we're going to do the muzzle area. What happens here normally is this. Here's the chin, right? So imagine that here's going to be the line of the middle of the mouth. Normally, this happens like this. And then you might ask, why? Why this shape happens? So if we go back here to our structure here of how our face works, right? We can see why that happens, right? We have a bone here. Let me get a yellow color. We have a bone here called the zygomatic bone, okay? And then we have our mouth. And from this bone, there are two muscles that comes out to connect to the corner of the mouth, which is the zygomatic major, not bone, sorry, muscle, zygomatic major, zygomatic minor. And those two things, when they pull like so, they create that separation here, you see? Here we have the masseter muscle, and here we have the zygomatic pole that creates that light change. So beautiful light change, right? And it creates those planes. So remember, these two guys, they're very nice to know. You don't need to know their names. Just remember they exist because we have the zygomatic bone. And then we have the two poles, zygomatic major, zygomatic minor, to the corner of the mouth. And then we can have this separation of planes right here. Cool? That's why that light change happens. If we look at some photos, let's see if we can identify a little bit of that stuff. Let me see one that has a little better lighting for us to see. This one kind of can see, but you can see here that there is a shadowing happening right here. There's a shadow. And then here we have light. It's very soft, right? But you can see that this is the zygomatic pole going on. And then this is the lateral, like where the masseter sits. Isn't that awesome? I think it is. Okay, so if we think about, like, for example, that our mouth, middle of a mouth is going to be here. I'm just going to do a little mark like this for now. Nothing crazy, just a little bit. We can think of it from this corner here. We can do that pull, like going right to the corner of the mouth here. I'm going to do big brush again. Big brush, you can see how it defines that plane very well. Check it out. Boom. Now we can see that we have the light part and then we have the stick part of a face, right? Isn't that fun? Like, it's so easy. You just put a few things in and now you can see the whole head structure of your character. I find that fascinating, like how simple it is. Cool. So I'm just gonna move here just to make this a little more straight inwards like this. But that's about it. Like, if you don't need to know anything about structure, this is all you need to know for the face to start playing, you know? I'm just smoothing here the temporalis area here on the sides, and that's fine. That's all the structure we need to create a cartoon character for now, right? If we want, I'm gonna go back to that brush, and we can just for fun, we can establish like this plane here of the nose, just to separate what is top, what is bottom of the nose. So again, just thinking about planes and light change, right? So I'm just establishing here with that brush. And yeah. You could even establish a little bit the chin down here. So one thing I like to do is to look from the middle. Just establish like where if you touch your own face here, you can really feel the bone of the jaw going on. So we can just go around here and mark that jawbone here. Okay. And again, we're marking things that we might take it off. This is just for us to understand the structure of our character. So you can see what's going on, right? Yeah. So now I can see that I need to pull this down so I can have more chin. Check it out. I can pull this up a little more. Here, this whole area here, under the chin to the neck is called the digastric plane. This is a very important area. You need to feel it. And normally, some people, when they're in the beginning of sculpting, they do this like almost negative shape going up like this. You got to be careful. There is a mass here going on. There's some muscles, the digastric muscles going down here to connect with the neck. So what we can do for now is just pull this a little bit to create that separation of that plane. And we can smooth a little. You see? But now, if I'm going to do even more, we have digastric plane. And again, none of the names I'm saying you need to know. I'm just pretending I know stuff here for what I learned in life, but none of that matters. What matters is for you to know that it's important. That's it. None of that naming stuff matters at all. Okay? Just say it, because if someone is like me that likes to know name things, then you have it. You will know it. All right, now it's a good moment to check if there's any questions or anything about this.
Yes, so we have one question, which is it useful to turn on perspective once in a while at times to look at things differently? Do you use perspective in ZBrush, Letitia?
Yes, that's a great question. I did not talk about that at all, but right now, as you can see, I do have perspective on. You can see by the lines on the floor going like this, right? So that's perspective. I do like to sculpt in perspective. Why is that? Because at the end, your character are going to be presented in perspective. So that makes sense to me. If I'm going to use this as my final result, I'm going to have perspective on. So I like to model in perspective. Some people are different, right? But that's just my logic. I'm just going to do it the way it's going to be seen. So in ZBrush, if you want to change perspective or turn it off perspective, you can go to this area called is draw. Yeah, inside draw here. Okay. And you can see there is an area here with the little camera thingy. That's where you turn on and off perspective. This button here is called perspective. If you press P, you can see that any button, if you hover over in ZBrush, you're gonna show if there is a shortcut. Yeah. So you can see that there is a P for perspective. So that's the shortcut for it. So let's press P and see what happens, right? Right now I have perspective on. If I press P, it's going to turn off. You can see how flat it looks. Because our faces, if we use a very long lens, that's going to flatten our face. It's going to look very flat. And to prove that, let's come over here and see portrait, different focal lengths. Here we go. We're going to see what happens. It's very interesting, right? So we can see here, for example, let me see if I can open this image big. Oh, this is perfect, you see? So the longer the millimeters, the flatter your face will look, right? So I don't know if I can stop this, but up here, there is like 20 millimeters, are very short. So you can see a lot of perspective happening, like his face. Let me zoom in. His nose even feels bigger. His face feels slimmer, right? Because there's a ton of perspective. If you go to 35, you can see a little less distorted. If you go 5, this 85 millimeters normally is a portrait lens. And you can see how much flatter his face. Look at this. It's the same person, same place. And look at this, how flat it feels, you see? And if we go down here, and you look down here, there's like a 200 millimeters moment where his face is super flat. So we got to be careful with that. So I'm going to tell you a few millimeters of lenses that is fun to work with, that is going to look good. Okay. I'm going to put this down here. So right now we have no perspective, right? So here's what I'm gonna do. It's gonna be easy. So we have this one, no perspective, right? Then I'm gonna duplicate here just for now. And I'm gonna go to draw and turn on perspective back. But I'm gonna put a very small lens, like 18. Okay, so this is the same model, right? But this one has 18. Now I'm gonna, oh, look how distorted 18 is. Look at this. Like if you zoom in, if you zoom out especially, you can see a lot of distortion going on. All right, so now I'm gonna put that here and I'm gonna go to draw. I'm gonna put a 35 millimeters. You can see how we already changed it a lot, right? Zoom in so they're kind of same size.
How
gonna
did you
put down.
duplicate those, Letitia?
Oh, I'll tell that just in a moment.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna go down here. I'm gonna put 50. So you can see already flattens a little more. That's great. And then I'm gonna put 85 here, more flatter. And then I'm gonna put like a longer lenses, like I said, like maybe 200 or something. So you can see much flatter here. So again, this is no perspective. This one was 18 millimeters. This one was, only God remembers, 35. This one was 50. This one was 85. This one was 200. So the bigger the number, the flatter would be, all right? The closest to no perspective would be. So these two are very close. The other ones, you can see this one is the most abrupt to see, okay? To duplicate something in ZBrush, you can see that I cannot change those. I'm not actually duplicating. I'm taking what is called a snapshot. I cannot go back to this model. This is just a 2D snapshot of the model on the viewport, okay? So what you do is you do Shift S, which is Shift Snapshot. And now this is a 2D drawing on my viewport, so I can compare things. But you cannot go back to this. It's just a snapshot of it. If you want to clean your area, I don't want to see this anymore. You do Control N to clean. Now it's over. So again, very fast here. Shift S. I can do many times if I want to see profile, I want to see from the top, I want to see from the bottom. You can do all the times. I do this at work a lot because at work, what I normally do is I have my head. I do Shift S. I put here 3/4. Shift S. I put here profile. And I send this to my designer and see if she or he has any notes for myself. So the way to clean it, Control N, clean it. Cool. All right. Again, this, I'm not duplicating per se, I'm just taking a snapshot of it. All right, so you guys got the idea, right? So what I'm gonna do here is, since we're just working on the head, I'm gonna consider this almost like a portrait for now. And the portrait lenses that I like is 85. It's a bit flatter lenses. Okay, so I'm gonna type 85. Sometimes I like to use 60, just a little more perspective. So let's put 60 and see. You can type here as well in the focal length. And I just have a little more perspective going on. But a very common portrait lenses is 85 or 100, which is a little flatter, okay? All right, so I'm actually gonna keep 85 for now. Any questions about perspective on this case? Everyone's good?
Looks good on the perspective side. Yep.
Cool. So
excellent.
Awesome. So
Letitia?
I'm again, like I like, sorry, see that?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, just a heads up, that's us right on the hour. So it's up to you. We can keep going for a little bit, or if you want to take the break, I've just got one announcement to make.
I think we're in good time to break. I'm gonna
Perfect.
take the stop share here.
Excellent. Right before we do have one message from Patricia, who is our Lightbox Expo Discord community manager. She has just started a study group for this webinar, so I'm going to give her permission to talk. And if you just want to unmute, Patricia, that's you.
Hello.
Oh, Patricia. Hello, there we go. Perfect.
I just wanted to say thank you, Letitia. Like these webinar series are fantastic. Me and Prashant were so like hyped up after the first session that we said like we should do something. And we got together and we started like a study group with a few other members. And I just wanted to let everyone know like we're getting together now every Friday at 7 p.m. Paris time and 1 p.m. ET for an hour. So anyone who is interested, feel free to join with us. We're just chatting about like what do we find difficult, what did we learn, and get feedback from each other. And anyone who is following is of course welcome. And again, thank you, Letitia.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I love this. And I said I was going to join it, but I couldn't join this week because my mom came to visit me. But I will join the group and I'll let you guys know in advance. So whoever wants to study together with me, I will be there.
Oh, that's
Wonderful.
awesome. Yeah, that would be fantastic. And if you want, I can send you like a link where we are gathering, but you can find it in study groups. If Jonathan scrolls a little bit down.
Yep. So here's all the study groups that we have. So you can see all the various ones which have started there. There's Patricia's one right there, Gartry's study group. But the quickest and easiest way, folks, is Patricia's just going to provide a link. If you go to Study Buddy Up in the Lightbox Expo Discord, you can see this right here, and you can just reach out right there and let Patricia know. Already a great group with Prashant, who we heard from last week. So I'm excited to see what these guys have got for us.
Yeah, this is amazing. That's great.
All
Everyone
right.
should definitely join it because like study groups helped me so much. Even today, like I do a lot of study groups with friends. That's when I get the most stuff done because you can be talking and sometimes you're just trying to find shapes and you're laughing and stuff, and it makes things a bit easier.
Yeah, there was actually a lot of people who love to do. We did like the hats, and there were a couple of people that are interested in doing creatures. And we struggled a little bit, like where should you have like the basic shapes for the eyes? Because usually it's on either side of the head, and you have like this big mouth. Like how should you break those things up? So if you have want to answer that question maybe later on, or that would be fantastic. And
of course, yeah. You remind me. We can talk about it at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Patricia. Great to see that happening. Amazing stuff, folks. If you want to set a timer for 10 minutes, if you have any questions, feel free to type them out, and we will get to them straight after the break. Anything else from you, Letitia? We good to go?
Now I'm just gonna go get some water. I'll be back. If anyone has questions, I can answer before we get back to working.
Fantastic. See you in 10 minutes, folks. Sounds great.
All right. Everyone, fix my camera. If you guys have any questions or wanted to chat about anything, chill. Break time, I'm here. Also gonna eat this Brazilian kind of sweet thing my mom brought from Brazil for me. It's called paçoquita, which is mainly peanuts with sugar pressed to make a brick. And I love it. All right, I see some stuff coming in. Regis said, hi, Leticia. Could you please talk a little bit about sculpting the internal part of the mouth, like teeth and tongue, in a simplified way? Yeah, we're going to do that, Regis. So we're going to sculpt the inner mouth, and we're going to put some teeth and a tongue. So we'll get there. Patricia asked, yep. Not going to read with mouthful. Patricia asked, what little workout warm-up do you like to do before you start building your model? Every time I want to kind of like warm up, I like to do planes of the face. What we're doing right now, I just put some shapes in and I start blocking the planes. And that kind of gets me flowing, like to kind of get to the sculpting things on the face. That's like the warm up I like to do. Is just like, I love sculpting heads, so I just kind of like play with making planes and finding different proportions, you know, and like sharpening things to see what happens. You know, a lot of people, the zygomatic pull that I talked about, like make it very sharp in a character, see what happens, then soften some parts. So that's kind of like the warm up I like to do. Yeah. Or sometimes I like to do cutesy stuff, just like do a few blobs and put some face and mouth on it. Yeah. What you guys like to do for warm-ups? Any suggestion? Haley said, hi, Leticia, so excited to be learning from you. I was wondering if you had some sculpting in that. What are some resources to refer to? One thing that I love is a book, and you can buy the physical book or you can buy the PDF. It's called Anatomy for Sculptors. So you can buy the book or the PDF, but it's a very, very good book that I always refer to when I can. And I can kind of like, if you want to sculpt anatomy, the best way is find very good anatomy images, which this book has good anatomy images, and then go part by part of the body. Like the body can be very daunting as a whole piece. So sometimes it's nice to just go like, I'm going to do arm, and then you focus on arm anatomy. I'm going to do a leg, focus on that. And I can show something actually. I did this exercise. Let me open here. I think I'm not sharing yet. Let me share my screen. I'm going to open a file here. Let me think. Where is it? Projects, inside anatomy. I'm going to open an old file from an anatomy class I took. And you can see here that some of the exercises that we did was to just like sculpt, just focusing on the torso, you know? So just like I chop off the arms, chop off the legs. The head is very basic, right? Just a little blocky. But you can see that I'm just focusing on the torso here, sculpting the torso. And you can see also those things that we talked about already. This is a bit more realistic, right? So you can see those separations that we talked about going on here. Check it out. This going to the side of the face, this part of the face. So you can see on a more realistic model, those things going on too. I like to do it also without symmetry on, just so I can really need to do both sides and I can exercise asymmetrical feelings. I can show also there's one for the legs. So this is one I did for the legs. Again, like I try to work asymmetrical just so I can really focus on learning twice on the model instead of using symmetry, you know. And again, it's very schematic in a way. Like I'm not trying to make it beautiful. I'm just really trying to understand the shapes of anatomy. Here you can see, I think this one, yeah, this one is a little bit of like a initial block out, but here you can see that I did this arm to play. And this arm, I was really inspired by the arm on Tarzan. So I was trying to push anatomy a bit more and make it a bit more stylized. So I was looking at Glenn Keane's drawings of Tarzan, trying to mimic that feeling, that really pushed anatomy feeling. So I did this one. This is a great exercise to do. So it doesn't need to be boring, you see. You can do fun stuff and have fun in life. It doesn't need to be anything super boring. For the head, I was studying a little more anatomy. So I did this guy here. And I also did this girl, which is from Rockwell drawing. So again, you can see it's not finished. It's just like a sculpt to study, really, just shapes and nuances of the face and stuff. But this is a great exercise to go part by part and like really, and you don't need to make realistic. Like here, I was doing realistic because the class I was taking was a realistic anatomy. But you can do it as stylized. You know, you don't need to go this route. Even with this hand, like I went more stylized because I was feeling it. I was just like, I asked my teacher, like, can I be more stylized? And he was like, sure, go ahead. And then, but all the stuff is there. You can see it's just more push the anatomy of it. So that's about it. Any questions on that? I think I missed a lot of questions here.
Are you working in your break, Letitia? I believe you are.
No, I'm just showing some stuff. Yeah, I'm just
so
showing
clever.
some exercises to study anatomy, you know.
Brilliant.
So just like separating parts of the body to be able to really play with the shapes and push and pull. Yeah, and again, you can see here the leg going on. And this is just for study, so, you know, you can have fun. You can try to make it look like real clay, like doing some stuff. And again, whatever you have to do, if you think it's boring, there's always a fun way to do it if you want to. You just need to exercise, like figure it out, put it asymmetrical or make a funny pose or whatever it is that you want to do. That's kind of how I try to go through maybe not so fun things to study. Let me open a model back here. All right. I saw there's a bunch of stuff on the chat, but
there is indeed.
Oh.
Yes, we've got some really great questions to return to.
Yeah, let's go over the questions and then we can go back to Molly, if you don't mind, John.
All right. Yeah, of course. So kicking off, we have a question from Andy Clark, who says, when working from concepts, sometimes I come across a graphic 2D shape that I do not know how to translate into 3D. How do you work through these difficult shapes? Do you lean on your knowledge of anatomy or ignore anatomy completely?
Well, depending on how simplified those shapes are, you know, there are two paths to stylize, right? If it's super stylized, you're going to rely more on basic primary forms like spheres, and cubes and cylinders, you're going to look for those things a bit more. If it's a stylized that has more anatomy, you're going to rely more on those plane changes of anatomy, you know? And if it's midway, you're going to rely on both. If it's something that it has some anatomy and some shape, primary shape forms, you're going to have to look for both things. You're going to look for those primary shapes, and you're going to look for the anatomy cues on that model. Normally, I like to go with both. I like to first look for the primary shapes and then start looking for the anatomy nuances on me. That's why anatomy is so important. Again, it doesn't mean that you need to know every muscle, but you need to know what those muscles do, or what they do when the light hits changes, right? The apexes, I like to call apexes and plane changes, right? Those are very important. And we're going to talk a lot in this class that we're doing. Any more questions?
Yes, indeed. So returning to the perspective, Zoe wonders, if you were going to sculpt a full body, what perspective would you use?
Normally, I like to use 60. That's my latest number that I like. Sometimes I change between 50, 60. But when it's a full body, 60 is a nice number for me. I like it. Some say that our eyes, the perspective of our eyes, how we see the world, is about 50 to 55. So I use 60 because I myself enjoy things a little flatter, less perspective. But that's just my taste. But if you want to go to how we see the world, you can go about 50 or 55. Yeah. Cool.
Fantastic. So, continuing on with the anatomy chat, and a great one. How much time do you recommend to practice to get better in anatomy? Do you have a daily routine which keeps your skills and basic knowledge sharp in the long run? What would you kind of recommend for someone who's beginning to get into anatomy?
Yeah. For anatomy, I would say every day is good. A little bit. Again, like you can go by parts. You can just go the arm. You can just do a hand. You can do just the foot. Just to kind of break into parts so it's a bit more digestible, a bit easier to digest the anatomy information. Me, myself, because I'm sculpting every day at work, I'm always training anatomy in some degree, right? But when I want to do anatomy studies with intention of just focusing on anatomy, I normally, like I said, like to chop it off so I can really study things a little more close up to just thinking about arm or about foot, about hand, etc. Yeah, and there are different levels of how much anatomy you want to study, right? We're going to talk here about primary anatomy. You can do a whole body study on just those very primary things of anatomy. Then you can go to secondary things. Then you can go to tertiary things of anatomy. So anatomy is something that the more you study, the more you know that you don't know, because it's the body so complex, the way it moves changes the anatomy, right? We all know that if you have your arm relaxed is one thing. If you flex your arm, not mine, but you know, if you have some muscle, everything changes, right? The muscle is not a rigid shape. It's something that is squash and stretch, and that's why it's good sometimes to make arm straight, to make arm holding something, to make something different. All of this is different anatomy. I mean, the anatomy is the same, the muscles are the same, but they behave different. And that's why it's nice not to do models only in an A pose or a T pose, that the anatomy is always the same way. It's nice to do different poses and sculpt and understand how the muscles behave on those poses as well. But if you are a beginner, I would say like focus on the primary shapes of anatomy. And again, we're going to talk in this class about those primary shapes, so you can follow me in the class on those things, you know? So if I do here one head, and we're going to talk about primary shapes, and our next webinar, it's going to be a week or two from now, you have a week or two to make a ton of heads. Just focus on the primary shapes of the head. Forget about body, hands, everything. Just focus on that. If you're taking this webinar seriously and you're watching every time it comes out, we have a series of 6. You have a chance to force yourself from one class to the other to only practice what we saw in class. And that's the best way for you to learn, because it's going to solidify, it's going to click, it's going to give you aha moments of understanding what we talked about, you know? So do a ton, repetition with intention. It's key. Okay.
And on
That
that
would be
note,
my suggestion. Yeah.
oh, that's fantastic. And I was just thinking, on that note, you are returning to us on November 26th, I believe.
Yes. So our next
Excellent.
webinar, November 26th. So you have from now until then to make as many heads as you can do. Many shapes, everything that we're going to do today, you can do a ton. Forget all about the rest. We're going to see the rest. You don't need to worry about it right now. Just focus on this part. Okay. That would be the best way to practice, being very honest with you all. That's the best way to do it.
Fantastic. Our second last
Cool.
question for now. What are your thoughts on using remesh by union to join different parts together and not lose forms and planes?
Yeah. Again, like there's so many ways in ZBrush to do the same thing. Whatever makes you feel better and makes you feel more in control of your shapes is the best way for you. Doesn't mean that what I do is the best, right? What I'm doing is just the best way that I found for myself. So if you know other ways and that works better for you, perfection. That's what you should do. Cool.
Excellent. And our last question for now comes from Iris, who asks, or who says rather, I'm a beginner in 3D and I love the baby capybara in your portfolio. Is there any is there any book or resource on how to study, how to stylize animal anatomy, or is it something that students learn after learning human anatomy?
Well, human anatomy, I would say like most of the time we make human. So it's a good way to start. A lot of animal anatomy are very similar, some parts, especially mammals, they're very similar, right? So a lot of times you're going to see the same muscle in an animal, but it's just placed a bit different or the proportions are different. So if you really go about studying humans, you're going to see that when you get to animals, things are going to click faster with you because it's again, especially mammal, right? So one way to study animal anatomy, at least for me, I took some classes, animal anatomy, or even doesn't need to be anatomy per se, but drawing animals is the very way to study animal shapes, you know? I think Schoolism has a ton of classes that you have animal stuff on it.
Tara Whitlatch would be a great place to start.
Yeah.
That woman knows animals insides and out.
It's
and how
everything,
to design
yeah.
Fantastical.
Including her book as well, right?
Yes, indeed.
I have somewhere in here her book, but it's a great way to like study animal anatomy. Just look for some books. Again, like quality over quantity. Like I like to have one good book of animal anatomy, one good book of human anatomy, and I focus on that stuff instead of like thinking about a bunch of having hundreds of books on things. That's not how I go. But again, like human anatomy for me is the place to start, just because you're going to connect the dots very fast for you when you go to animal anatomy. Cool. Yeah, of course.
Fantastic.
Anything else?
That's us. No, I'll pop the links in the chat, folks, for you to have a nosy. But Letitia, the floor is yours.
Let's get back to it. One thing that I love to do, and I haven't done it yet, is to change this dark gray background. I do not like it. I like mid-gray, and that's just my taste. I do not like to sculpt with very dark background. And again, that's just a taste thing. You don't have to follow me, but I'll show you how to change it if you want. So what I'm going to do here to change the color of my background, and then I'm going to go to my color palette and I'm going to put mid-gray. Doesn't need to be perfect. I'm just like moving this thing to mid-gray right here. Okay. You can see here the color, mid-gray. And then you go to the document tab to change anything related to your document. And there is a button here called back. It's weird, but it's the background color. It could be background. It would fit, but they decide not to. So the back here, now that I have that gray color set here, you're gonna go to documents and I'm gonna click, just click on the background, right? And now it changed to a little lighter color. And that's how normally I like to work. It's a little better for me. Again, just a taste. All right. So let's continue moving on with our shapes here. Okay. One thing that you might notice that I never focus on just one thing. Like I'm not just like, all right, I'm going to make ear and I only focus on the ear for a long time. I'm going to be bouncing around the face. And again, the whole, it's made of parts, right? You have ear, eyes, nose, mouth, a bunch of stuff. But it's still, I need to be focusing on the whole all the time. And that's why I don't like to just go to the nose and then do it. But everything else needs to dance. It's a dance, right? It needs to flow with my nose. If my nose is super developed and the rest is not, it's hard for you to feel the dance going, you know, the flow of things. So you're going to see that I never focus in one area only. And that's just something to keep in mind if you want to try to do it that way. All right. So I'm going to push this in a little bit here. Again, big brush movements at this stage. We're still on primary shapes, so you're going to use big brush. So let's show a little bit of the ears here, okay? And I'm going to do a very simple shape. And on my, what's the name? Peer ref here. I separated some stuff by parts. So I have an area just called ears for us to study some ears. So because I'm doing something a little more like Coco style with a little more anatomy, this is a very simplified ear. It's not something I'm looking for, but it's beautiful nonetheless, right? If you look here, very simplified. If I start going to something with a little more anatomy like this, you can see a bit more anatomy shape going on, right? So maybe I'll go more on this vibe because we're going with a little more anatomy on this model. Yeah, you can see this one has some nice soft anatomy going on. I might go a little more on this vibe here. So the important things about the ear, let's talk about it very fast. We have the helix. Wait, is that it? Helix, anti-helix. And now I forgot. Anyways, I like to call the C and the Y, which is this Y shape here. Okay, so C and Y. Okay. And then we have this shape here. It's called tragus. Okay. That is a little c. So you can call little c, big C, and a Y. That's all we need to know. Obviously, we have the lobus, I think it's called, which is this little area here. So if I separate in this shape here, we can see, again, we have a C, big C, lobus down here, and a Y shape. Okay, that's all I want you to think about right now. So we're going to establish that, again, in a very soft way, nothing too crazy. I'm not making final yet. And now we're going to use a new brush that I don't think we used it before, which is the clay buildup. So if I press brush, I press C for clay, and you're going to see there's a bunch of C brushes. I'm going to look for this one, which is clay buildup. Okay. Boop. Here you go. And if I start doing anything, you can see that it's building clay, just like the name say. Okay. And we're going to use this. But again, we're going to use with love and intention. One thing I don't like about this brush is that it's a square. You can see it's a square alpha on it. And I don't like it. I like it a bit softer. So if you want to change the alpha, you can see here the brush alpha is a square. I'm going to click it and I'm going to say no alpha. So you click on the first one, that's no alpha. And that's basically going to leave things a bit softer, you see. It's not that very abrupt square. This is a bit better for me. It's cleaner. So that's the only thing I change on the brush every time. Okay. One thing I like to do also is the intensity right now is set to 20 down here. See the intensity. And like I said, I like to build stuff slow. So instead of having like a big build like this of 20, I'm going to set that for like maybe 10 or 9 or 8, something like this. this. And now let's work on our shape. So if I think about it, very simple. If you want to think about it even simpler, we can think about this shape here. Check it out. This negative shape, okay? Just this. So I'm going to build this negative shape here, okay? So I'm going to go here again. If we can even draw a line like this. I'm holding Alt to go negative. And I'm just going to build a little negative shape. Use my tragus here. And I'm just going to push it down this shape. Okay. Go. You can see that I'm going slow with calm and ease. Okay. Okay. The ear is quite deep, though. I'm just like going slow. I'm just pushing some mass here. Here. And if I zoom out now, always thinking about how the light hits stuff, okay? I zoom out, you can kind of see the shape now going on, right? Not bad. We might want to place things a bit different. So I'm going to go back to my move brush. And I'm just going to make sure that my tragus here is a bit bigger. Okay, going a bit more stylized now, adding some stylization. So I don't want it too small, because if you look at your own ear, the tragus is actually a small piece. But if I'm trying to stylize here, just going to make a little bigger like this. Again, like always clean, intentional stuff. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a very clean C. Then I'm trying to do very clean shapes like this. See? Always with love. Okay. There's no need to rush, because we look from other angles. Remember, this is 3D, right? So we can look from all the angles. I can push this volume in a bit more. You see? It's like gentle. You be gentle with shapes, especially stylized shapes, because you want it to be clean. You want to be gentle. And respect the polygons. Respect the polygon. Okay, I don't know what I'm saying. All right, so I'm doing here. One thing you can notice that is beautiful in this ear, and I'm trying to do it here, is the concept of thick to thin, TT, thick to thin, which I have a thicker volume here, and then I have a thinner here. So let's go thick to thin like this, see? Our body is not a machine, is not perfect thickness like a tube. You always want to add what we call taper. So what's going on here is a taper, right? I have a bigger area, a small area. So it's going thick to thin. And that's what I'm trying to do here. Okay. So those concepts I'm telling you guys, my suggestion when I was learning about this concept, I would get post-its, like, you know, little notes, and I would put it on my monitor and put those words down. Thick to thin, contrast, intention, love to the polygons, all that stuff. I would put it on my monitor so I could keep those stuff in mind until it got embedded in my brain, you see. So that's just a suggestion for anyone that wants to do that. So something that worked very well for me, to have that on my monitor, right on my face, you know, so I can really keep thinking about those ideas. So you can see here that we're starting to have that first C shape going on. And again, I have to rotate all angles and see what I'm doing. I have my thick to thin going on. If my transitions are clear, so here I have a clear decision, straight and then curved. Okay, so those are all things. Another very cool concept is what I just said, straight to curve. So it's nice because what is a straight thing? What is a curved thing? And why is this so nice? Ding, 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 contrast. It creates contrast, and contrast is visually appealing. It's nice to the eyes. Our eyeballs like it. So think about that. Okay, so I'm pushing it in here with move. Leticia, the polygons are so stretched. It's fine. We're just blocking primary shapes. When we subdivide, they're going to be smooth. no need to stress about it. Okay. So again, just double checking things here. All right, so we have that shape, right? You want to smooth inside a little bit so the polygon is just a bit smoother. You can do that too. But don't worry too much, you know, like your polygons stretch is fine. We're going to subdivide. So here in the back of the ear, we have a little thing. And we can just, if you touch your own ear, there is a little structure here that does this little shape, like a little, it's almost like a cylinder shape here. So we have your ear, right? And then we have this little cylinder they attach to it, and then it sits here, you know. It's always nice to add that because if your character is bald or if you're going to see that back area, it's very not nice if you don't have it. It looks a bit unfinished. And just adding that shape there. You see? That looks nice. It's all good. All right. All right. So we have something there. I'm not going to go too crazy, like I said, on the ears again. I'm just going to keep it the way it is for now because I'm going to move someplace else now so we can keep bouncing around areas and get everything is going to get at the end together instead of separate. Okay. Here we can just push this down a little more. Again, when you want to do small movements, you make your brush small. So right here, what I'm doing is just trying to make a little more crease. And we could change our brush again to that plain brush. So I'm going to press brush M for M-A-H-K, cut, whatever. And then you can go here and just push a little bit of that shape to create a crease. You can do it here in the back if you want. Again, if you want to keep things a bit more angular for now, totally fine. We can just use the brush. Same thing here. If you want to make this a bit cleaner, you can go with the brush. You see, I'm just going to kind of like mark a little more that plane change. You can even do a little bit in here to create that plane change. Now you can see that's way more graphic. Does it mean I'm going to keep it that way? No, again, I'm just blocking structure. And then later on, we can come in and say, oh, this should be smoother. And then we can come around and smooth. For now, I want it blocky. I want it easy to read with light. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pull this again. So where could we go next? Let's go to the nose a little bit. The nose right now, you can see it's very simple structure, right? One thing that I want to do with the nose is when I was looking at my husband's photo when he was a kid, I love how his nose is very much like up nose. Like if we think about this plane here, right? If I look at this photo, look at how high this plane is. You see that structure of the nose? And mine is way lower, right? It's like pointing down more, where this one is pointing forward way more. So I thought that was very cute, and I thought I wanted to try to do on my character. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come here, I'm going to move this plane up like so. See? So I start seeing a little more of the up nose kind of feeling. I'm going to move that up. This. And again, think about the primary shape here is like this sort of shape like this. See? And then it goes up here. And then we have the side face going on here. So right now, I don't have the definition of the structure, what is side, what is up, top. This top we don't have yet, so let's do that. I'm going to get my brush, BM, get that brush there, and now I can create that structure here like this. See, I'm creating that separation of planes. And now I know what is side of the nose, which is this area, side of the nose, top of the nose. See what's going on. Okay. If you want to polish your planes, you know, you can see that mine has a little volumes here. Another amazing brush is called H Polish. Okay, so if I press B, I press H, you're gonna see here H Polish. and it does what it says. It's going to polish. So just to show it big, if I go on this plane here and start going around, you can see that it's polishing that area. You see, it's a bit more abrupt now. I'm going to go back. It's called edge polish. So on these planes here, if you want to polish a little more, I can go around with the edge polish and just, you can see that I'm like blend. I'm going to invent a word here. I don't think this word exists, but I'm going to say it. Planifying. Planifying? I don't think that exists, but I'm going to invent it right now. So I'm planifying things here. And I can even come back here in the bottom. You see everything I do is very slow build. Okay. I'm like really being nice to my polygons and making sure everything is clean. So now you can see those planes very, very easy, very, very clear. Cool. For now, let's think about what else of characteristic of this nose we can try to do without going too far. I guess, you know, it's a bit wider like this, and then you get thinner sooner like this. Just gonna do that for now. If you want to build this area here, so we have this cut, right? Let me go here. We have this cut in between. Then we have this structure going on, right? Then we have this structure doing this to the mouth. Remember the zygomatic pole. And then here we have this going on. Goes like this. Then we have the side of the nose. But we also have this. You see? Which is the bridge. I call the bridge of the nose. I call it. A lot of people do. It's not me. So in some models I do, I don't like to define that because it's just a taste, but we're gonna define now just so we can see. So I'm gonna get my brush. So and again, like I'm just gonna pull this up like this to continue the bridge of the nose here. Okay. I'm gonna do it with the bigger brush so I can really break that plane. It's too much. So like this. All right. So we have that. Okay. And this actually sometimes goes in a bit more like this. So you can kind of see, I'm not going to define again too much because he's a kid. A lot of kids, they take time to develop that area of their face. If we look at, see if I can find anything. Yeah, some kids, they just have a little less. And then when they grow up, that bone structure gets more intense. And if we want to know, see here in the anatomy structure, right? That would be this, right? So let me draw here. So again, we have that structure here going on right in the center. And then we have this going in. Then we have the nose structure coming out, right? So what I'm marking right now is the area here. Okay, we have the nose. We can look also on the skull very fast, just so we can see that on the bone structure. So again, we have that, then we have this shape here. Then we have this one, the nose structure comes out, you see. So this part of the bone here, depending on the person, sometimes a little lower, it's a bit higher, and then it creates bigger nose or smaller nose, etc. So, all right. So we have that structure there. It's going to be very subtle. But if we want it, I'm going to get my clay buildup again, brush. And if I start slowly carving the eye cavity, and again, I'm going to show a skull here. So here's our eye cavity, right? And if I start building just a little bit of that, I'm going to start carving here. So I'm holding Alt and just going slowly, taking mass around. Okay. And I just noticed I'm too high. Remember, this is in between the eyes, so I need to be a bit lower here. You can see what's going on. Just doing a little bit of that cavity in there. And we can use move as well, just to kind of force that cavity a little more. See, and we can pull this out. this, and we have our eye cavity right there. And now is a good moment to decide, right, if my eyes are going to be a bit more separate, spread like this. I think, yeah, I'm going to keep it that way. And you can see some bone structure going on here. Look at this. We have this area here, this, you know, so even carving here, I can see those structures start happening, you see? Like here in the bottom, then we have this structure here for the nose. So you can see there slowly, might not seem like we're doing much, but we're doing a lot of structuring in our model. Okay, so just building things is 3D. We gotta look at all angles, see what's going on. Okay. All right, so we have an eye cavity, which is beautiful. With that polish brush also, if I press BH for H polish, I can polish a little bit the temporalis side. Again, I'm just flattening a little bit. Yeah. You can see here that we have this very interesting cavity here, right? It's like, why are you not putting that cavity in? Because there's a muscle here that's called temporalis, that this muscle, it's very interesting. This muscle pulls like this, and it connects down here with the jaw. And if you touch your sides of your head and you move your jaw, open your mouth, you can feel them moving because they help that rotation of the jaw going on right here. And they're very fat muscle. I mean, there's no fat in the muscle. They're just thick. Let's call it thick. And it fills out this gap. So you don't see much this gap. When you see someone very skinny, you see that a bit more. But in general, the muscle is going to fill the gap here and you're not going to see that much. So that's why we're not carving that in there. So you guys know. Cool. All right. All right. So let's establish some of the lips now. I don't know if I have enough polygons for that, but we'll see. So what I like to do is start with the top lip. So I'm going to get that MH cut, the plain brush. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to establish my top lip. And for now, I'm not even thinking about design too much. I'm just trying to make a shape here. So a mouth shape, right? I'm going to do this. This is the center of my mouth. So you can see what's going on. And there is something very wrong happening here. And I'm going to tell you why. By default, this thing is a curve, right? Imagine if I had a cylinder here, okay? Insert here. That's more how the mouth, the teeth and mouth sits. Right now, I have a very soft kind of transition. So what we have to do is that we got to do a little more of that cylindrical area here, okay, on our structure. And the easiest way to do that, very easy, you just need to pick a move brush, big move brush, and go right in the center and pull it out a bit. You see how now it's like cylindrifying? Cylindrifying a little more this area, very easy. So you make a structure, you just pick a move brush and you just push that out to cylindrify it. So again, like I can push this in a bit. I'm just making that cylinder shape for the mouth where the denture, right, the teeth sits in. The interesting thing is that this cylinder, if you look at it, this cylinder here goes very high up, okay? So what happens is our nose also is gonna follow the bottom of our nose. So if this is the bottom of our nose, it's not gonna be straight like this. It's wrong. What's gonna do is gonna do this. See, following that shape of the denture. This, good, okay? So what I'm doing here is that basically I'm gonna pull this back a bit and I'm kind of like following that denture shape, okay? So that's very important. Look how already feels more like a muzzle. Before, let's look at before, look. Before, whoops. Before, very flat. And now, after, we have denture, we have mouth. Cool. Now I think is a good time to ask if anyone has any questions before I continue putting anatomy into stuff. Do you have any questions, John?
Yeah, we have one question, which is there a special way to make hair, or can I just sculpt it like I've seen you doing previously?
Is there, say that again, sorry. Is there a special way to do ear?
Hair.
Hair. Yes, hair is funny. Hair is the same thing we've been doing here. We're gonna go, the rule is always, if you wanna feel like you have control of what's going on, the rule is always this. We have primary, secondary, tertiary, okay? If you take time with love, like we're doing right here, to establish the primary shapes. So imagine if this boy had a hair here, like a haircut like this. He had like a part line here, and then his hair is gonna do this, and then it's gonna go to this side and do this, something like this, okay? So this is the haircut. What is the primary shape? Exactly what I drew, right? If this is the haircut, I'm gonna do this big shape and then this big shape. When this shape is establishing correctly the silhouette, everything is going right, I jump to secondary. So now I'm gonna see, is there any big shape that I wanna break here on the front? Like make one big one here. And on this one, I can use like maybe separate one other shape and break a little bit like this. So you go to secondary details. After this, you go to tertiary details, and then you can go here and add like little breakups or like add little flyaways that's going on. Is exactly what we're doing. We're gonna use the same technique on the hair. Is that clear?
Looks clear.
That's right. All right, so cool. We added our muzzle. That's nice. Looking from the top here, okay? And I don't know if I have a top view of a skull. I do not. But looking from the top view, see what kind of image is the best one to show this. Oh, this one is fine. Like one important thing about the zygomatic bone here is that it's like you can see here that this plane on the front of the face is actually quite flat. On the side here, right here is the what I like to call apex, right? So if you imagine there is a plane here and then there is a plane here, this corner here is the apex. So if I think about this is the corner, this is going to be the farthest way that my zygomatic bone is going to go, and then it's going to go in like this. So one mistake people do sometimes is to give volume for the zygomatic on the front of the face like this. That's not it. We do it on the side. We do it in a diagonal way. Instead of going forward, we go diagonal. So what I'm going to do here is just get this area here and push a bit for the zygomatic volume right about on the side. Okay. All right. That's important. Not too important, but you know, since we're building shapes here, it's nice to see. All right, let's continue. Okay, let me think what else. Oh, maybe we can start adding the what's the name of this in English again?
The eyebrows. The eyebrows?
No
Above-
eyebrows,
eyebrows.
the lids, eyelids.
Oh, the eyelids, sorry.
Eyelids, yes. So, okay, so let's build some eyelids. The eyelids I like to do it separate so I can keep it clean and graphic. So I'll show you guys how I do it now. So I'm going to create a sphere, very similar to what we did last time on the first webinar. I'm going to insert us here. So here we go. I'm going to press W to go to the gizmo, and I'm going to change to our polysphere. If you don't know what I'm doing here, on the first webinar, you can find it there. But basically, I'm going to a lower resolution sphere here. Now, imagine that this is our eyes closed, okay? So, whoops, let's scale down. And we don't need symmetry. I'm just going to focus on one side. Think of it as like the eyes closed, the lid closed, okay? So now I can think about the size of it's going to be big like this, or going to be tiny. you know. So I'm gonna do kind of something like this. All right. And one thing I like to do also is to keep a bit bigger and synced in a little more. And I will explain why in a sec. But we just look, that feeling, you know, feels pretty decent. So now I'm going to mirror, and remember to mirror, the way I like to do it at least is that you go to Z plugin, then you go to Subtool Master, and there is a button here called mirror. And I'm going to click it. It's going to ask me, do you want a mirror? Sure. Boop. And now I have on the other side. If I turn on symmetry, pressing X, now I can move things around, symmetrical. Remember, X turns on or off. If I turn off, I'm moving them together without symmetry. If I turn on symmetry, I move them symmetrical. All right. Cool. Okay. So what I like to do is to place it, and then I can move it around. Again, imagine that this is, the eyes are closed, right? And I can feel it, the size of things. Okay, something like this. We're gonna change it, obviously, you know, we're gonna make it open and yada yada, but for now, that's kind of like what I'm feeling for him. Again, zoom in, zoom out to see what's going on. All right. So now that I have that, I'm going to chop it off to make up and bottom lid. So one way to cut in half spheres, very easy way to cut in half spheres, which I like to do, is you go to the gizmo. Okay, so I press W to go to the gizmo mode. And this gizmo is weird, but I love it. If you go to the scale, right, I'm scaling here. But if you hold Control and scale, it's going to start cropping, you see? That sphere. It's finicky, it's weird. Okay. So if this is the center of my sphere, I can hold Control and crop the way to the center of my sphere. And sometimes it does this weird thing where it breaks symmetry. I don't know why, but just do it again if it does it. I don't know why it did it. Something like this is halfway. And you can see now that we have a half a lid, right? But actually, before we do that, I'm going to duplicate this subtool so I can have my eyeballs, right? So if I go here, I'm going to rename this to up lid. I'm going to duplicate, click on the duplicate button, and I'm going to rename this to eyes. So now we have eyes and up lid. So I'm going to isolate up lid here, Control F to isolate. And I'm going to hold Control and crop it again. My lid, that's great. So now you can see we have the eyes and the lid. It's sitting on top of each other. So I'm going to go back to my eyes and just scale down a little bit the eye so we can have thickness on the lid, or the opposite. You can scale up the lid and do it. So it's going to scale like this. And now you can see that we have a lid thickness going on the eyes. Scale down a bit more. And again, we're going to fix this area. Don't worry. This is just start for now. What's going on? Cool. All right. So one thing we're going to do here, we can do is to click on the lid back, and we can shape a little bit better what that lid's going to do. And what am I going to do? So let's look at some eyes here. We can look at human eyes, see what happens, and then we can look at cartoon eyes. We find a good eye here. For us, maybe this one. Maybe this one. So for those of you who draw, you probably know, right? That we have kind of like a straight line here. Then we have an apex right here. And then we do this. So we have this sort of shape. And then on the lower lid, we have a little apex right here. And then we do this. So think about this diagonal right there. See, is that a rule always needs to happen? No, especially in cartoon, we can do whatever we want. We can do almond shape, we can do whatever. But it's always important to know kind of like a basic shape that works well. A lot of eyes have this basic shape, not all of them, right? if we go around here, we're gonna find a lot of different kind of eyes that might be a bit different, right? If we look at this one, it's a little more, we have this and we have this, but this goes down a little more. And then we have, so this is a different shape than the other one that we choose, a little more open like this and less droopy, you see? So it's the same structure, but it's a little different. If we go, let's see if we have any other eyes here to check. This one is, you can see less those apexes, right? It's a little more almond shape. So, but you still can kind of see, it's just less intense, see? So it becomes like a simpler. And if we go to cartoonies, let's check it out. Look, can do whatever you want, right? If we look here, more spherical, but even here, we can kind of see if we want to kind of structure, we have one big thing here, and then this shape goes down. Then this is a very simple shape, but we have a break here, see? So it's just a matter of trying different feelings of what you want to do with your character's eye. So let me find something else here. This one is very interesting. You see, so we have that wall here, and then we have a simple curve going down. And then here, it's almost like a flat, well, he's smiling, so it flattens a little bit, but this is very Disney eyes, right? Where you have this, and then it does like this, and then the bottom's a little curve like so, and then you have the iris inside, right? So let's do something with it. Let me find here to see. Yeah, this is very, you know, very cartoon kind of thing. You have a big curve in the top, a small curve in the bottom. Same thing here with Antonio, you see? You have like the wall here, and then you curve, and then you have a little curve in the bottom. So let's try that just to see for now where we get. All right, so again, we know we're gonna have a wall here. So I'm gonna try to force a wall here with my polygon. And we're gonna have a big curvature, okay, like so. And nor if we're breaking stuff, again, we're just trying to find that shape first. So can do something like this. And we have a little bit of that shape. If we look from the bottom, we can fix a little of that like this. And we got that curvature going. And now we're going to do the lower lid. For the lower lid, we can just duplicate the eyes again. So I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to call it lower lid. And I'm going to crop it. Same thing that we did before, but I'm going to crop it down now, right? So like this. Oops, again. And I'm going to show another way to make lids if you don't like this way, like having separate geometry. I'll show a different way that is a little dirtier, but it works. So I'm just cropping here in half. Okay. And I'm going to scale up a bit. Move it in. See here. And now I'm going to shape again. I'm going to worry about making that simpler curve in the bottom here. So something more like this, little simpler. And one thing I like to do is like the rotation. Right now, the apex of this curve, it's very very straight like this. And what gives sometimes character is shifting that stuff, like moving this one lower and this one higher, or the opposite, right? If you want to do something more like this, and then you do the curvature down, so it has a little diagonal feeling. So for this one, I think we're going to do a little more up diagonal. So I'm going to up this here. And create just this point is going to be a bit lower, and this point is going to be a bit higher. Doesn't need to be a lot. Just moving around. Okay. If we look in the profile, we can see what's going on here. Oops. We again, like everything needs to be clean and decisive. So what's going on here now is, if you're imagining planes, I have this, then I have this plane coming out, then I have my eyeball, this plane coming in, like so. So I want a clean line here, clean line here, okay? So if you want to clean it, you got to do it with intention, love and intention, okay? All right, so this is one way to block the eyes. Is this the size of the eye that I want? No, after we combine things, we could change size. We can scale up, scale down. It's just important to understand that there's a sphere sitting there and the lids are following that sphere, right? Another way that we can do the lids, just gonna hide the lids I did, just leave the eyeball here. A little dirtier way, but it works as well, is if you go back to the body and you go back to the clay buildup brush. So brush, C for clay, find the clay buildup. You can start building that lid right here like this. Slowly you go about building that shape. And then I can go like lower here on my point, and then I can go down here and start building shape. You can see that the planes are a bit harder to understand. That's why I don't like to do it that way. I prefer doing the other way that I did, but you can do that way. So right now, if I go back to my lid and subdivide it, I'm gonna press divide. We can see a bit cleaner what's going on. And then I'm going to go to the other one, press divide. And on the eyes, I'm just going to, instead of pressing divide, I'm just going to turn on dynamic subdivision. That just makes it smoother, but I'm not really subdividing the geometry, right? Yeah, I explained about that on the other webinar, if you're not getting what I'm saying. So again, like I'm going to make sure that they're touching, meeting together and clean. So you can kind of see that I tend to sculpt pretty slow compared to other people, because again, like I like to work clean. I like to work with what I call intention. So I might take a little longer to find my shapes just because I want to have that level of intention going, you know. So I went back here to the body and I'm just moving a little bit of the volume of the cavity of the eye here, just to make sure I am making that structure sit well on it. You see? And one interesting thing about the eye cavity, this cavity here, is that it generally is concave around here. Oops, it's the other way, concave. And then it starts getting straight here, and then it gets convex. What that means is that there's like more mass around here and more cavity around here. So if we think about that, I can go with my clay buildup and I can build it a little more cavity. I'm going slow building a cavity here on this area. And then slow here, I'm going to build volume on this area. It is very slow. I don't even know if you guys can tell what I'm doing, but it's there. Okay. You build some volume here. Center. All right. And that's how we put our eyes. Now we're going to dynamesh those lids into the eyes, which is nice. So what I'm going to do, again, if you want the lids a bit cleaner, you can even subdivide a bit more. Doesn't matter now because we're doing very low res still. We think about it, we have very low res mesh here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to merge. So if you want to move things here to organize your structure, there are these buttons here. So I'm going to put the eyes on top. So I'm going to go to the top area. Doop, doop. And I'm going to get the body and merge down the lids. Okay, merge down, merge down. So now it's all inside the same structure, right? But I did not dynamesh yet, right? I need to combine those shapes. So again, we go to the dynamesh area. But I'm not going to do 200. I'm going to do a bit more just because I want a bit more detail at this stage now. I just want a bit more. So instead of 200, I'm going to do 250 or 300, something like that. is, let's put 300, just to get a bit more polygon. When the Dynamesh button is on, you don't press Dynamesh again, right? You could. I can turn it off and click again. It's going to Dynamesh, you see? But if you don't want to do that, if the button's on, you just do Control, click, and drag. But I explained that better last time. Let's just do this way. We're going to turn off and turn on the button. Now joins everything. See? Ah, it's so nasty. Yeah. But we have denser topology. We can clean it up. It's all a cleaning process. You build, you clean, you build, you clean, okay? So hang in there. All right. So now that we did that, we can go around and clean a bit more. Oh, there's one thing that is interesting. I'm going to show you guys inside Dynamesh. There is a button called polish. And some people like to use it because it polishes, it cleans a little bit your model. So if I click on polish before doing Dynamesh, and I click on Dynamesh, you see how it polished all the shapes that we did? It does a little polish pass, which makes everything cleaner. You can use that if you want. The result is pretty good actually here, but you can see that we lose a little bit of form. But in this stage, it's so early that maybe it's better for us to do that. It's very clean. So let's keep it polished. I like it. All right, so we did our polished Dynamesh. That's great. Now let's structure a little better those lids. Okay, so one thing we can do here is, again, I'm going to use my MAH cut, matte cut, whatever it's called. I should give a name for this that is not the name of the brush, just so we can know what we're talking about. I'm going to call it the plain brush, okay? So every time I say, let's get the plain brush, this is the brush I'm talking, because the name is a bit weird. I'm just going to go here a little bit and clean up. So for now, again, we're thinking about structure. So I'm going to make sure that this structure is very clear. So what I'm going to do is create that shape very clear. We might smooth later. For now, I'm thinking on structure level, okay? Again, same thing down here. We can structure a little bit the lower lid. We can pull those shapes a little more, project. One interesting thing about lids is that they are not thin. They're actually quite thick in our eye. So what I'm doing is I'm just pushing, pulling. I never know push and pull, which one is what, but I'm just pulling here, thickness to the lid, okay? Same thing I'm gonna do in the bottom, push some thickness. And one thing that is very good is to think about thick to thin again. So here's thin where it meets the eyeball, and then it gets thicker, and then it gets thin again, okay? So it's kind of like this. This is very nice when the light hits and you put skin shader and all the fun stuff. It works very well in the eye. So it's just some
Bear with me just one moment, folks. I'll just see if I can get Letitia back in. I think we've just had a bit of a connection problem. Bear with me. Thanks for your patience, folks. We're just sorting it right now. Thank you very much. Tell you what, folks, if you just want to take a 10-minute break, I'll see if I can get this sorted. That was pretty good timing. Anyway, for a 10-minute break, and I will get Letitia back with us. Thank you for your patience.
Am I back?
Hey, Letitia, there we go. Fantastic. Don't worry. Thank you for your patience, everyone. We'll just continue the 10-minute break just for those who've taken it, and then we can get back straight to it. Well done,
Sorry,
Letitia.
I don't
We
know
got
what
you back.
happened here.
That's okay. We've got you now. Technology, sometimes it works, sometimes it just tells us to take a break. So no problem.
Yeah, time
Thanks.
for break.
You got it.
I thought you kicked me out so I can give people breaks.
Oh no, I'm not that mean. That's
I know, I'm joking.
I do my best. All right, good time for a 10-minute break, folks. If you haven't already, we'll grab it just now, and I'll keep an eye on everything, make sure we're good. Letitia, grab a water. We'll see you in 10.
All right, sounds good.
No problem.
You guys have any questions? If you're still there. Not related to what I'm doing, but just anything we can talk about.
Letitia, I've been looking at cool griffin sculpts by Lord of the Print. They look amazing. It's so
Ooh.
cool what you can do in 3D.
Yeah,
I'll send you a link. I'll pop it in the chat. They look amazing.
I want to see. Patricia asked, what is your favorite 3D model you made so far? Oh God. I don't know. I guess I really like the models I did on Encanto. That was pretty fun. That's a kind of like style and amount of anatomy I like. Just kind of similar to what we're gonna do in the class as well. Ooh. Do the models do have to be optimized later for rigging and animation? Yeah, this what we're doing. It's kind of like without considering that stuff yet. We're just kind of like sculpting. But when you have to add to the pipeline, you got to do a technical pass to make the proper topology that will change things. The topology is mainly like how your polygons will flow to make the formations. So you're going to see a lot of the topology actually follows some of the muscles we have on our face. So when those motions happen, they're going to follow that, similar how our own muscles in the face are going to do. So it's very interesting. I think who Elizabeth asked, how did you crop the sphere? Let me share my screen. I'll show again. John, could you let me share screen? Is saying that I got.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, I forgot to do that when you jump back in. One moment. There we go.
Thank you. All right. So the way I cropped the sphere, Elizabeth, it was like this. If I will, I'm going to get a sphere here on the top, and you go to the gizmo mode, and then inside the gizmo mode, if there is a scale, right, you can scale in an X, but if you hold control and click on that scale, it crops. You see, you can go up or down, you start cropping shapes. I love this. I use it a lot. You're going to see me using it a ton. And you can do it in any axis. If you want to do in Z, just hold control and you can crop in Z as well. But in this case, we're using Y to be able to crop that sphere, you see. So that's how I did it. Is that clear? Let me know if it's clear on the chat. Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah. So it's just with the gizmo. I like to do it. Cool. Regis asked, hey Leticia, could you please show us your piece of Funeral and the Pianist and talk a little bit about that? Sure. Let me open my email, not my email, my thing here. And I think you're talking about this piece here. Yeah, I mean, this piece, let me zoom out, get here. You know, this piece is interesting because I modeled all of these characters asymmetrical. So I was really trying to get that feeling, the motions of things, you know. And I think I talk about this in some talks, different talks, but you know, there is a light separation here of warm and cold, separating like a gossip from real feelings, right? You can tell that they're feeling real feelings here, but then here the guy, who do you think is gonna get all the money since he died? Yada yada. Like, so they're like not engaged on the feeling of the death, you know. Where here we have this progression of like a lot of feelings, and then here the kid represents sort of like a straight line of like the process of life and death happens naturally, right? It's just part of life. And kids sometimes they have that resilience, right, of surviving death a little better and looking up to the future. So that's kind of like what I did here. and that, and a lot of it is just the same tones of color everywhere, but then there is a hint of more saturated color in the center of the image, again showing like life and death is just part of the process of being a human being, you know. So that's kind of like what I thought. But the main thing thinking about sculpting on this scene is that everything I sculpt asymmetrical to really get a very gestural feeling to things on this one. Thank you for answering my questions. I was super impressed with the quantum models. When I saw in the movie that Annabelle loves sewing and that they incorporated that in her costume, I was so hyped. Yeah, the costume design at Disney, they're just insane, you know, the amount of detail and stuff they do. May asks, can I ask, after sculpting, what kind of software you usually use for retopology? May, I use Maya, but you know, you can do retopo even in ZBrush. There are tools now inside ZBrush that you can do retopo as well. But I myself use Maya. Some people like to use Blender or 3ds Max, or even there are some topology tools that I forgot the name right now, but there are some tools that are specific to make topology as well. But I just use regular Maya because it is the way I learned and it works for me. So yeah, there's Topogania, Andres. Patricia is asking, will we cover retopo? We're not going to cover animation retopo because that's like, it needs to be a whole class to understand how things work. But we're going to do a basic ZBrush retopo, like in a dirty way. And I can talk a little bit about what are the important areas that you need topology. But yeah, we're not going to do like proper, because topology by hand takes time. So, but I will talk about some important things in topology for sure. So we can do it here in ZBrush, a few things. Yeah. Are we back? Can I go back, start over?
I was just about to say, we are good to go when you are, Letitia.
All right. Okay, so we have about half an hour more. One thing we're gonna do here for us to start feeling happy about this model right now that's gray and sad is to paint. Let's paint some stuff, okay? I think we have enough structure now to be able to paint some things. So one thing I like to do is to change the material. So right now we're using the default that I like to sculpt, which is called Madcap Gray. But if I click on the material, you're gonna see there are a ton of different materials, right? One that I like a lot is default in ZBrush. It's called Skin Shader 4. And this one is nice to paint stuff. So I'm gonna click it, and you see there's a white canvas to start painting things. Okay. So if I start changing my color here, you can see that whatever color I choose is going to paint the whole head for me because there's no color in the head yet. Okay. So we can kind of get a little mid-tone. Like I was thinking this kid is mixed. So, you know, he's mixed, just like my husband, like he's mixed white with Asian. So I'm going to go on like a skin tone, but I'm going to go mid, a little more mid, where he has a little darker tone to it. And if you want to look for skin tones, just go on Google and type different skin tones palettes, and you're going to get a bunch of colors that you can use from. I'm going to go with this one for now. Maybe saturate a bit more. Oop, that was too much. Doesn't matter. We're going to paint a lot on top of this. So just going to go kind of like this, you know. And to fill this color in, to paint it, you can go to color up here. There's a button called fill object. So that's the fill, kind of like a bucket where you paint everything in. So I'm going to say fill object. So now our object, if we look here on our subtool, you can see that there is a little paintbrush here, you see. And all the other tools, this paintbrush is not active. It's because there's no paint yet on it. But the moment I paint something, I fill in something, this paintbrush becomes active. That means that there is some color on your model. So that's how you know if your model has some color. The paintbrush is on. You can always turn it off. Like if you want to, if I change my color here now, you can see that the other things are changing color, but not what I painted already. So let's say I want to see my model again in a gray color. If I turn off this paint brush, you can see now I can change the color again. But if I turn on my paintbrush, it's going to show the color I painted. So it's paint on and off, basically. Okay. So that's kind of like what we have for his face. Now let's go to the eyeballs. For the eyeballs, we're going to put, there is a rule in colors. Not a rule, but like something nice to follow is if you have 0, which is black, and you have 1, which is white. In general, you never want to use full 0 or full 1, right? So you give a little bit in, maybe 0.2 or 0.1, or here you go 0.095 or something. It's just nice not to use full colors of like full saturation of things, especially when you're trying to do something more naturalistic, because those colors, when we put lights and stuff, they can get pretty intense and contrasty and weird. That's the best way I have to explain. So for the eyes, instead of putting full white, like so on the eyes, we're gonna go just a smidge more grayish, you know, like something more natural like this, instead of full white, like so. Okay. So again, to paint the eyes on that color, I just need to choose the color I want. Then I go to color and say fill object. Now you can see that our brush is on and we have that color on the eyes. So if I change colors, not going to change on the eyes anymore. Cool. Okay, so we have some color. I'm going to save it. It's always good. So let's here. And let's structure a little more the nose and the mouth. But now we have some nice colors, which is cool. So now that we have more polygons, because we did a extra 0 measure, we can go back to our plain brush, or maybe just the clay brush. So I'm going to clay build up here. And I'm going to start adding some nasal holes, right? Just going to block here a little bit of a hole. And remember, we're kind of looking at my husband's nose here. So that's why the hole is so facing forward, because, you know, it's the up nose treatment here. So with the move brush, now that I block that sort of shape there, I can start playing with it, and like we can start adding a bit more shape. So I just go with move, you know, like this. Start, always zoom out to see how things are feeling. And now with the clay brush again, I'm going to add the wings of the nose, which are these ones right here. So I'm slowly building mass, you see. Slowly building mass of the wings. And I can add a little mass here for the little ball on the tip of the nose. You can see it's starting to get some anatomy, right? On the side here, we can build a little more volume for the wings. Here we go. And I can build a little more bulbous feeling here on the nose. Like this, starting to structure. Again, with big move brush, I can start fixing some proportion changes. Okay. And how deep, how big you want to do. It's all, again, based on the design choices you want to make. A lot of cartoons, they don't go too big. They go kind of flat like this. You see, I'm moving the polygon. It's not too deep. So I like to do that like this. Here, we can start structuring a little bit the shape with the move brush. I can start pulling a bit more those shapes here. You can see. And again, we can use smooth, just tap. Like if your smooth is too strong, when you hold shift, look down here on the intensity. If I hold shift, my intensity is 100%. I'm holding shift, okay? I'm gonna go a little mid intensity so we can tap around a little without smoothing too much. Like this. And again, like I'm imagining, I don't have a different view of this photo, but I'm imagining that his nose is very like rounded. So I'm just trying to give that roundness to it, and I can smooth around. Okay, so I'm starting to get that nose structure going, which is nice. It might be too big. I like big nose though, so I always go too big and then I have to fix it again. One thing we can do here now is to get our plain brush again, because you can see it's a bit mushy, right? So if I look from the bottom, things to look from the bottom of the nose. Again, that arch, very important, and we have it. That's great. We have a little bit of the shape, and then we have the wings of the nose. Okay, we're getting that. We got the hole. So we're going in the right direction here. One thing we can do is to get the plain brush. So yeah, I'm going to call plain brush, and we can go here just to define a little bit the corners. And if you see that it's painting gray, that's because this is very important actually. Some brushes, they come with paint activated. And right now I have this sort of like gray color. If I put red, like a very bright red, you can see that I'm painting and sculpting at the same time. We don't want that now, obviously. So what you can do is down here on your menu, you can see that the function of the brush is to Z sub. Z sub means that it's going in. Okay, so if I go in here, you can see that it's hard to see with this red. Let me change the color here. But if I push it, if you push it, you can see that the shape is going in. Z add is going out. So if I do it here, you can see that it's pushing out the shape. But by default, it's Z sub. And RGB is that you paint at the same time. I don't want to paint, so I'm going to turn off RGB, red, green, blue. So now if I do whatever, it's not painting anymore, okay? And that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go here again. I'm going to start defining a little bit of that transition between the wing of the nose and the face. So you can see here a little more. When you define those things, it becomes a little more stylized and nice, which is cool. Do you got any questions?
Good for the moment. But if you do have questions, folks, we're wrapping up very soon, so be sure to ask them in the Q&A. If we don't get round to them this time, then Letitia will be joining us in a couple of weeks' time as well.
That's right. All right, so okay, so we established a little bit of the nose. That's looking cool. One thing I like to do with kids' nose also is to kind of like curve. This is a stylization as well. Like I like to curve a little bit this bone to make it smaller. And then I can just give a little more of that volume here. If you look at Anna and Elsa and a lot of, I don't know if I have profiles of those characters here, but they have that curvature very intense. I don't have anyone on profile here. But basically, like if we think about this model here, for example, you can see here, right, our eye cut, and then we have this separation here. And then this kind of curves a little bit to come to the nose. This one is not too much, but for kids is nice because again, that bone structure is not super intense yet. One thing about the nose, I didn't show some different noses here, but you can see some very different types of noses that we can try to do. Again, because I'm going more naturalistic, I'm going with a little more anatomical stuff. Doesn't mean that we cannot shape it, things different. Look at this, how cool, very sharp angles going on here. But yeah, we can try to add some angles to it. I'm just going to work on that a little later. All right. So again, I'm going to curve this a little more so it gives more youth when you have less of that bridge structure here. And project the nose a little, okay? It might be too much, maybe. Smooth a little bit. All right. So now let's block the mouth and let's check it out some mouths here. So we can do very graphic thin mouths with very little anatomy. That's not what we're going for, but you can see a little more shape here. Normally for male characters, they keep very thin the lips. You can see that on Luca, the lips are basically a cut, right? You barely don't see it. And then female characters, they're going to have a little more structure to it, but you can see very thin. You mainly see the lower lip. Here on Kubo, there's a little bit more. This one is very cool. It's like a noodle mouth thing, which is nice. It fits the style. Again, because we're going more on this vibe here, which is kind of Encanto. You can see that Antonio has a bit more lip going on, a little more anatomy going on. And on Miguel as well. You still see some lip, so let's do that. All right, so I'm gonna get my plane brush again. So brush and cut, here we go. And like I said, I like to structure the top lip first. So for now, I'm gonna do a very simple shape, which is just this, like an arch, like so. And then we can do the center of the mouth. I'm gonna define it like this. And looking from the bottom, look at how cool we see our cylinder, right? We can still feel our cylinder going on here, right? That's very important. A lot of people forget that and keep the face too flat, and it's kind of, if you're doing something more anatomical, it doesn't feel right, you know what I mean? All right, so we have our upper lip. I like to always put a little bit of a smile on things. It's just my way of doing it. And now I'm gonna carve a mouth bag to it, okay? And there are a few ways that you can do that. There's the dirty way, and there's a clean way. And this is a good moment. I don't know if I ever mentioned about masking. I don't think I did on the last time, but masking, just like in Photoshop or any application, you can mask areas. So if you move something, you're not going to move the mask area, right? So let's say I want to adjust something on the ears. So if I mask everything, I can move my ears, and I'm only moving the parts that are not masked. That's a easy concept, right, to understand. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mask a mouth bag, and I'm going to move it that moment. But if you notice now, the mask brush by default, you can paint a mask on the object, or if you click and drag, I'm holding control, you can see that it changes from red to yellow, and it says mask plus, which means I'm adding mask. If I want to take mask out, I'm going to hold control, which is the mask button, and I hold alt. Alt is always the inverted version of whatever. And now I'm taking mask out, you see. So now I have that, okay? If I click control from outside, you can do a rectangular mask, okay? So for now, we're gonna paint a little opening for his mouth here. So I'm gonna do like something like this. So I paint. But I want to move this part. I don't want to move the body. I want to move the mask part. So how do I invert the mask? Very easy. Everything mask related, you hold control, right? Just like I said. So if I hold control and I just click anywhere here, click, you see that invert? Don't click on the model, click outside the model. Boop, boop. And then you invert your mask. Isn't that cool? All right. So if I want to paint here, for example, I don't want mask here, I can invert like this. And then with my gizmo, check out my gizmos right here. So if I push in, Z, open your mouth to me, baby. You see? that was stupid. But yeah, you got the idea. So if you move in like this, you can make a mouth bag like so. So I'm gonna put very deep. Okay. And now I kind of have a volume of a mouth bag in here. And the polygons are very stretched. Don't despair. You're gonna fix it. Okay. But if I clean my mask, how do I clean a mask? I don't want mask anymore. You hold control, you click and drag. Doop, it goes away. So let's review very fast the mask here. If I hold control on the object, I can paint mask. If I hold control alt, I can paint out mask, right? If I hold control outside and I click, doop, I invert mask, doop, doop, doop. And if I control, click, and drag, I clean mask. I know that's upsetting. It's very weird, but yeah, it is what it is. That's how ZBrush works. Now I have a mouth bag, okay? And if I show my wireframe, you can see that my polygons are stretched. So it's maybe a nice time to do a little ZBrush again, and maybe add even a bit more polygons to our ZBrush. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ZBrush, Dynamesh, Dynamesh. Right now I have 300. So, and I have polish on, which I don't know what polish is gonna do. It might polish too much, my geometry. So I'm gonna turn it off actually. And then I'm going to put maybe 400 polygons now. We had 300, I'm going to put 400. And I'm going to turn off and on ZBrush. And you can see that now we have more polygons in our mesh. And some weird stuff happened. And that's sad. We could turn on polish again and test it. It's going to polish a little our model, but I don't like polish to keep polishing things because you start losing shape. So I'm going to turn it off actually. I'm going to do Dynamesh and it create these artifacts and I'm just going to deal with it. I just go with smooth and just smooth some of these artifacts from ZBrush. And you move on. You see? All right. So we can just go around with smooth and just clean a little bit, some stuff here and there. Most important, I'm going to smooth the mouth area here just a little bit. So now we have an open mouth in there. Okay. And you can see I can even smooth some of my planes here. But actually, I'm going to put my planes back just so we can see it better. So again, I'm going to take every time you feel like you're losing control of your shape for whatever reason, just put your planes back. This is like a lesson I learned. It took me time to learn, but every time I feel like I don't know what's going on there, put your planes back in. You get your brush and you go back and you establish those planes back into structure. That's the best way for you to feel like you're now losing control of your shape. Again, this is just me with my experience saying, this. So again, I can go here and establish a little bit of that corner of the head here. And I can go back and establish my zygomatic pull if you need for now. If you feel like, okay, I feel good about how it is, that's fine too. You can see what's up. All right. So let's establish, we can go here again and just mark a little better, keep it more graphic, the planes of the eyelids as well. Okay. But we're talking about mouth. So now that we have the open mouth, we can again establish the top lip like this. And then we can establish a little bit the lower lip. And one thing that it's always annoying is to have to deal with this gap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to clay build up and I'm going to establish the thickness of my lower lip, you see? So carving in, and as I carve in, I establish the thickness of my lower lip. And lips are actually quite thick in general. So this is pretty decent. I'm going to do like this, just carving in, okay? One thing about lips that is similar to the eyelids is that you're going to want thick to thin on the side of the mouth. If you touch your own side of your mouth, you can feel it that it's quite thin, this area, but then here it gets pretty thick, just like the eyelid. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm going about here. We can go here again, thick to thin. Think about thick to thin here. So I'm going my lip, carving in, thin, carve in everything. I'm doing a bit fast because it's, you know, it's the inside the mouth. So just trying to get that hole in there. Okay, and now we kind of have our mouth back there established. So now let's shape a little better our lips. And I'm gonna keep his mouth open for a while until I show you all how we can close the mouth but still be able to open whenever we want. But for now, we cannot do that quite yet, so hang in there. I'm gonna keep the mouth open. Doesn't mean it needs to look bad per se. We can make it feel better. So what I'm gonna do here, again, I'm just gonna try to force a small smile, small little bit of a shape to it. Like this, and maybe curve. Something like so. Thing like this. One thing that is nice now is to define the corners of the mouth. Oh, look at from below. We have this very nice shape going on like this. But look at my bottom lip. It's doing this, and then it's doing this, and then it's doing this. It's like all over the place. So again, you gotta look at all angles. And the bottom lip, normally the lips in general, they're gonna have this sort of shape like this. Okay. So I'm gonna try to do a little bit more of that dance going on here. So a bit flatter here for the philtrum area. And then do something like this. All right, so there's some, you know, things that we need to sculpt, which is fine. We're gonna fix that. So one thing that we know also for the mouth, normally the nose, right in the center here is where the lip comes out. So let's say like this is the lip, right? So be careful. Sometimes people do this, okay? You have the lip here and they put the nose coming out like this. No, the lip comes out in the middle of the nose volume, okay? Careful with that. So I'm gonna make the lip like so. I'm gonna make the corner of the mouth. And then we're gonna come here, right? And do the lower lip. Let me do it this again. So this, we're gonna come here. He's gonna smile a little bit, right? And then we're gonna do like this, and we're gonna come in and come out with the chin, okay? And remember, there is a diagonal here, okay? And some people are different. Some people, they have this diagonal stronger. Some people have it a little more flatter. But in general, there is a certain diagonal. So I'm gonna pick my move brush and just push this in a little more. Push my lip out, push this lip in. And now we can, he's moving. Let's do some clay brush. So if I start removing mask here, I start separating the lip here from this and doing the chin, right? So I'm gonna get my clay brush and I'm gonna start building a little bit of chin. And in between here, I'm just gonna take mask out, right? But we're starting to add some more anatomy to it. So the chin, again, building some volume here for the chin. And again, we can take the move brush and just force it a little more, that chin there. And the more pieces that we start getting into it, the chin, the mouth, the more we start looking at the hole all the time, fixing the hole. So all the time zoom out and check what's going on, right? So I'm gonna give more chin because his mouth is open. So all the time you gotta be zooming in and out and checking for shapes. Okay. All right, so for the mouth here in the corner, I'm just gonna make it a little sharper like this. Work a little better on this lip here. And I'm just trying to find a decent shape for now that his mouth is open. If you have little bumps, you just hold shift and clean around your bumps. No need to get stressed out, you see. And for the lower lip, I'm just gonna build a bit more volume here. So I have a thicker lower lip going on. So build some volume. Oops. Any questions? We have about 4 more minutes. So if you guys have any questions, now's the time. And there's no questions, that's fine too.
We have one question from Inez who asks, do you recommend your Gumroad course for those of us following your webinar series? I'm thinking it'd be a great addition to review the process you teach.
Yeah, my Gumroad is more about designing block out stuff. I don't go deep on how we're going here. So if you want to study blockouts and think about design, I talk a lot about that on my Gumroad. So yes, feel free to get it going. But this webinar, we're going way deeper than my Gumroad stuff. So yeah. Okay, so you see, I'm trying to work on those shapes here. And I think this is a good moment for us to stop. It's not beautiful, you know. There is a Brazilian artist, his name is Rafael Grassetti. And I love to use, he says like, it's gonna look like shit until it doesn't. And you gotta be okay with that, okay? So your model, it's gonna look like shit until it doesn't. So you just gotta keep going and it's gonna look, eventually you're gonna feel it like, right, I'm getting to a place where I can see the character. But when you're adding structure, it's very rare that you're gonna feel like you can see your model, you know what I mean? So keep that in mind if you're doing stuff and you're like, oh, this looks like shit. Yeah, it's gonna look shit until it doesn't. Okay, just hang in there. So yeah, so I'm just trying here to define a little bit of the lip planes. Every time you don't know what's going on, the best way to do it is put your planes back in. You're gonna start understanding again what's going on. So here I'm putting my planes. I'm gonna build a bit more mess on this area here. This is very generic. Like after we get all those shapes in, we can play. It doesn't mean that it's done. We can play like, oh, I'm gonna make his nose thinner. I'm gonna make this smaller. We can still play, right? It's doesn't mean that my block out, just because my block out I did with intention, that doesn't mean that I cannot change anything, okay? So let me see here. Oh, one thing I wanna do before we go. Last thing. I want to paint the black of the eyes just so we can feel it a little better. So just push this in. Let's paint the black of the eye. So I'm going to go back to my eyes, and remember my eyes is very low res. So I'm going to click on divide a few times. So because poly paint, which is painting inside ZBrush, is called poly paint. Poly paint requires a lot of vertices for you to paint. If I try to paint something right now, it's going to be very jaggedy because my polygons are low resolution. So I'm going to divide a few times. 1, 2, 3. I think 3 times enough. And for us to paint, what I'm going to do, okay, I'm going to get any brush. Normally, I like to use the standard brush because I don't use standard brush, so I make it my painting brush. So I'm going to press BS for standard, and I'm going to get my standard brush. So if I use it, you can see it's building mass, right? That's not what I want. I want to paint. So again, we saw down here that Z add adds mass, Z sub subtracts mass. What about if I want just to paint RGB colors? So I turn on RGB, I turn off Z sub, and now if I paint, you can see that I'm painting color. Whatever color you pick here. I'm going to show my model again. I'm going to put a full black. This is the only time I put full black, but sometimes I even put a little less black. And then I can just come here and paint a little bit of an eye shape. Okay. And for now, it doesn't matter. We can paint better later. But for now, I'm just trying to get the feeling of the character. So again, if you put very big pupils, it's going to look like weird, or like, you know, sweet puppy dog. Or you can paint a bit smaller. In this case, because we're doing a more naturalistic model, I'm just going to paint a bit smaller. And I have a tendency to make my characters cross-eyed. So bear with me, because I gotta paint a few times until I feel like my character's not cross-eyed anymore. So something like this. Okay, and last thing, I promise, it's gonna take 1 minute. Last thing.
Go for it, go for it.
All right, last thing, just to make this look a bit better for us today, I'm gonna pick a little pinkish color. So I'm gonna pick this skin color, just gonna do a bit pinkish. And I'm gonna make my brush bigger. I'm just gonna paint a little bit of pink on the ears, a little bit on the nose, a little bit on the eyelids, a little bit on the mouth, just to give him a little life, so he doesn't look so pale and weird. So, okay, so that's, you know, it's not great, but it's not horrible. So we can paint that in for now. And I'm going to talk more about paint next class, and how we can go about making better painting for our models. But you can test it out. Like you can try darker colors on it. Like this one's feeling better, darker. He looks like, you know, he's have a cold. And you can do a little bit on the cheeks as well. It just brings a bit of life when you're sculpting, and it's a bit more fun. So anyway, that's where we're gonna stop. And next time we're gonna continue from here to finish this head and add body and other things to it.
Amazing.
All right, I'm gonna stop talking.
Amazing. No, that's perfect. We had a question right at the end, which might make for a good demo next week, in 2 weeks' time. Sorry, which is, do the teeth affect the shape of the lips? Do you have to edit it after adding the teeth? So maybe you could like just quickly give us an insight into what you might show us next time.
Yes, that is totally correct. When we put the teeth all the time, like if the hole is not made, the teeth is part of the hole, right? So if it's not there, it's very hard for us to predict if it's working. So when we put it in, we're gonna shape things all the time. It's only done when it's done, when we have all the pieces, right? So teeth, gum, tongue is all part of the character. So we're gonna adjust things towards when we edit it, okay?
Fantastic. That's great. Once again, Letitia, this has been incredibly eye-opening, no puns intended. I literally am so new to this that this is amazing.
Awesome.
As ever, the chat have been loving what you're doing. They find it really insightful. Actually, this may be of interest to yourself. Next week, we actually have Wouter Taupe and John Hardesty. Wouter Taupe, as you may know, incredible character designer. And John Hardesty is one of the best portrait painters I've come across, and a fantastic guy. So just a heads up for everybody, there's an amazing character designer and a portrait painter that will tie straight into what Letitia's teaching here. So join us for that. And then the week following, November 26th, Letitia, you're back. So we can't wait to get back to part 3 and continue on with the character. Huge thanks to everybody who came today, and a huge thanks to yourself, Letitia. This has once again been wonderful.
And next week we're gonna continue ahead. We're gonna start adding the body. Okay, so don't miss that, because the body is very fun part to do is faster. So the head it always takes a bit more time because, you know, it's the head, but the rest goes a bit faster. You guys will see.
Fantastic. All right. Take care, everybody. Letitia, thanks again. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, John.
See you on the Discord. Bye.
Bye.